Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our meeting this evening on October 11th. We're going to call the meeting to order, and I'll do a roll call by our Kathy Clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
If you all rise, we're going to have a Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Cody Campbell, Councilman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to have an invocation by Bill Record with the Kiwanis Club of Sunrise Vista. Welcome, Bill.
Heavenly Father, may I ask for covering and protection of the City Council members, administrators, staff, contractors, and residents. As issues are discussed tonight and plans are made, please provide your guidance and continue to remove obstacles and provide resolution. Prayers for unity, civility, and a common purpose for the greater good. May we all be good stewards of resources for the betterment of our community. And as always, be a light upon the hill. Amen.
Thank you. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. The next thing on our agenda is the approval of our agenda by our City Manager, Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes this evening.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda is, and there was no closed session. No closed session was scheduled this evening. So the next thing will be a presentation. And I'm going to come down there, and if Victoria Hedden, Bob DiMaggio, Roger Rowe, and our other guests would join me at the podium, I'm going to give them a proclamation declaring October 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 2016 to be the Knights of Columbus Tootsie Roll Drive Days in the City of Vista. So get your little dollars out if you have any, and I'm coming down there to do this. Hello. Oh, there we go. And I'll read the proclamation, and it goes, whereas the Knights of Columbus will hold their 28th annual Tootsie Roll Drive on October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, 2016, whereas over 550 councils of the Knights of Columbus in California will conduct their annual candy drive in communities across the state to raise funds for the intellectually disabled children and adults in California. All money collected locally will be donated to Downstown, a nonprofit organization with residential homes in North County for adults with developmental disabilities such as Down syndrome. Whereas intellectually disabled citizens are productive, contributing members of society, and funds raised through this candy drive will assist Downstown in supporting the continued independence of these citizens. Whereas the Vista City Council offers its sincere appreciation and support of all involved with this candy drive and commend them for their efforts to help others. Now, therefore, the Mayor and members of our Vista City Council do hereby proclaim October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, 2016 Knights of Columbus Tootsie Roll Drive Days in the City of Vista. And we urge all citizens to support this important fundraising activity to help the intellectually disabled children and adults in Vista and all throughout California. So congratulations on that, and good luck in your fundraising abilities. And I have $1, and I think maybe some of the council members have some money for you. So you have, where's your cans? Okay, here you go. And I think if you go up there, you go up the stairs right there, and then walk across, and they'll have some for you. And then you can go down to, maybe the audience might have some. Did you go here? This way. And then go this way. And then have to go, yeah, go down here. Joe, wait a minute till I get all done. Yeah. Can I start now? Okay. Okay, now. Okay, well, they're finishing up down there. We'll continue with our agenda here. And the next thing is our consent calendar on our agenda. The recommendations on the following consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar by any member of the public, which can remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk's secretary. And those cards are out back on the table if you'd like to talk. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following adoption of the calendar. And our consent items are items C1 through C11 on our consent calendar. So do I have... They have no speaker slips from the public on our consent items. Do I have anything from the council?
I move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you, Deputy
To
Mayor.
pull C4 and 6 and 7.
Hold on.
I'll second the motion.
Pull C4, just a minute, C4, C6, and C7?
Yeah, 7 and 8, or I'm sorry,
4, 6, 7, and 8?
7 and 8 go together.
So C4, 6, 7, and 8?
No, not 6. C4, C7, and C8.
Oh, not C6. Got it. Okay. Okay. With that, do I have so you made a motion. Will you change your motion and
There was a motion and a second.
Yes, ma'am.
the balance of the consent calendar? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then everyone, please cast your votes on the balance of the consent calendar. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. The next, then, we're going to take item C4 first, Alta Vista Gardens, November special event banner and sign.
Madam Mayor, before
Yes.
we move on, I wanted to make a comment on C11. I just wanted to say C11 for the audience is regarding our youth commission appointments, our appointments for the youth commissioners to serve on the various city commissions. And I wanted to say thank you to all of the youth in the community who came out for this. We had 14 positions available on the city commissions, and we had 50 applications for those 14 appointments. And we had some very stellar applicants. And I just want to say thank you to Vista, thank you to the schools, the parents, and the youth for stepping up and trying to be a light in our community. So thank you and kudos. That's all I wanted to say on that one, Madam Mayor.
I would second that. I agree with you. That they're great kids to interview. So that was very interesting. Okay, so now then we'll move to C4, which is Alta Vista Gardens November Fest special event banner and sign. Do you want a report?
I just wanted to make a few comments, which is this has come up before us a couple of times in the terms of the readability of these 4x4 foot signs. I mean, this has so much text on it that you can't see it from across the street on an intersection. So I just want to make sure that moving forward, I know we've discussed this before, that we're utilizing our 4x4 foot display locations and the banner across Vista Village Drive in a way that is most effective, and we're able to actually read it when we're not only driving by, but we're stopped at a location. Because I know the one at East Vista Way and Beaubier Foothill, when you're stopped at Beaubier and Foothill, you're not going to be able to read this. And so I think we need to do a better job of working with the organizations that are able to utilize these locations so that we're able to have artwork that we can read more easily. So,
I don't know if we have to put like so many words allowed. I mean, I don't know if we have to go to that extent.
I don't think we have to go to that extent. I think if we can have staff pre-vet the artwork a little bit better, because I mean, if you're at the other end of the dais here, which is about the equivalent of being across the intersection, it's
Oh yeah, you couldn't read that, but
You can't
but
read it.
the city doesn't do that. It's the person that does the
right. But it does have our logo on these banners that go up. We approve them.
We
so
do,
I
have,
think
we
can
do have a say in what's put on there, and we'll do that.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we do a better job on that so you can read them better. Same thing on the banner across the top of the street. It's some of them are very hard to read.
very
yeah,
busy,
too busy.
very hard to read.
Yeah, I agree. So,
But with that, I'll make a motion for approval.
Okay.
And unless there's time to go back and approve this, but I don't think there is. This is November 19th.
yeah,
So,
okay, I'll second your motion. So, okay, cast your votes on that. And that passes unanimously. So the next one are C7 and C8. There are two of them. They're talking about the field turf installation of synthetic turf at Luz Duran Park Soccer Field and also at Rain Tree Park Soccer Field. And so, would you like a report on that?
well, I pulled these items because one of the things that I hear a lot about in the community, I think we all have on the council, is lack of communication with the public about what we're doing with our city facilities and parks. And I think this is one of those really great positive items that folks need to know about in the city. This is a fairly significant, fairly significant sum of money that we're expending to make some great improvements to two of our parks. So if maybe we could just have a brief staff report about what the work is and what we're going to do.
Okay.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chuck Christ, the Public Works Director. In 2015, the City of Vista submitted a grant application to the California Department of Housing and Community Development's 2014 housing-related program, known as HRP. This program rewards local government agencies with grant funds to create or rehabilitate parks for participating in affordable housing development. The city was awarded a total of $932,350. The existing artificial turf is 10 years old at Luz Duran, is heavily worn and in need of replacement. The new synthetic turf will help the city provide continuous recreational opportunities for city residents and sports leagues. Field Turf USA Inc. currently offers a CMAS certified contract containing beneficial pricing. The cost for this 80,500 square foot installation is $452,977, which includes an extended field care maintenance service agreement for 5 years. The regular market price for this scope of work is estimated to be approximately $551,000. However, as a result of using the competitive CMAS pricing, the city's poised to save approximately $98,000 for the HRP grant.
Great. Thank you very much. I think it's a great program, and we're getting great pricing on this, and it's going to definitely improve both of these locations. And the grant that we got for participating in the affordable housing development is one of the positive benefits of some of the affordable housing developments that we've had here come into town is we're able to get these grant monies and make the improvements to our parks that benefit the entire community. So with that, I will make a motion to approve item C7 and C. Can we do C7 and C8 together, City Attorney, or do they need to be voted on separately?
You can join them together if you'd like.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, please cast your votes.
Thank you.
That motion passes unanimously also. So the next thing on our agenda is our public hearing, Development Code Amendment for Large Family Daycare Homes, and we're going to have John Conley is going to do that. So our public hearing is open, and now we're going to receive testimony for the proposed amendment to Chapter 18.88 of our Development Code. And so Community Development and Engineering Director Conley will provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an amendment to Chapter 1888 of our Development Code regarding large family daycare homes. These homes are regulated under the California Child Daycare Facilities Act. They separate daycare facilities in residential homes between two categories: smaller, 8 or fewer. They're outside the city's discretion and can be licensed without any city review, or large, which is up to 14. And the city may review those subject to specific conditions, which are listed here: spacing and concentration, traffic control, parking, and noise control. The existing development process that we have, or the review process for these applications, is included in Chapter 1888 of the Code. Currently, applicants submit a written application with a $165 fee. They're reviewed by the zoning administrator, who makes a preliminary determination as to whether or not they meet the code requirements. A notice of that decision is then mailed to all property owners within 100 feet of the site. The public then has an opportunity to appeal the decision of the zoning administrator within 15 days. And if an appeal is requested, a public hearing is scheduled and held at City Hall. The appeal is heard by the director, and no further appeals are available after that. The proposed amendments that are before you this evening would streamline the permit process to eliminate that lengthier process, subject to specific operational and development standards that are included in the staff report. These are the typical conditions that we include when we review them at the staff level. It also eliminates a notification of surrounding properties requirement, and the zoning administrator's decision is appealable to the director only for the applicant, not for the general public. The proposed code amendment is in response to issues that we face in the current review process related to neighborhood expectations and the limits that the city has in reviewing these applications. The current review process allows for neighbors to appeal a decision, which creates an expectation that the city can fully regulate these uses, that we can deal with neighbors' concerns about the time of play in the yard, or when traffic comes, and where they park and how they get into and out of the site. And in fact, the city's review authority is very limited by the state law. So these public hearings typically result in failed expectations on both the side of the applicant and the neighbors, and they become extremely frustrating at the staff level. I can tell you I've sat through a few of them. So the staff's here requesting some changes to the code in response to that issue. The Planning Commission reviewed this proposed code amendment in September, and they support the staff recommendation to change the code. And the council is requested to support the staff recommendation as well, and that completes my report. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Rigby.
The one question or the one concern that I have on the changes that we're making here is to the notification to the surrounding neighbors that a large daycare is going to be taking place or starting business in their neighborhood. I still think that the neighbors would like to know that, but I understand the trouble with neighbors thinking that they have a say in what will happen there when they really don't because of state laws. What avenues do the neighbors have at this point, should there be violations of the parking or the noise or whatever we do have control over? Who do the neighbors call now, and what can we do? What do we have control over?
So the city has control over the conditions that are imposed within those 4 categories: spacing and concentration, noise control, parking. If there are noise violations, code enforcement would handle it. If there were parking violations, code enforcement would handle it. Outside those realms, most of the state's authority is limited to the safety of the children in the home, so the operational standards are really under the city's authority.
Have we had a lot of complaints? I know that you said that there had been people who prior to, or when they get the notice, they come out and they talk about it. But after the daycare has been in operation for a while, have there been a lot of issues with our daycares?
Not that have come to my attention. We can check with the Code Enforcement Division and ask if they've had a lot of experience, but not to my knowledge.
So if we went ahead and continued with a letter to the residents notifying them that this was going to be opening in their neighborhood, the letter would have to have a caveat in there somewhere, letting them know that this is just for notification purposes. I wouldn't want to start for people to think they can still come and like you said, they think that we have more control than we do. I still like the idea of them being noticed, but I'm not sure how we would do that without creating more problems.
Well, the staff doesn't really object to notifying the neighbors of the decision to allow for a large family daycare subject to all the conditions.
Right.
The concern we have was with the appeal opportunity and the hearing process that occurs, the time that's invested, and the limitations on our authority. So if the council wants to require that we notify surrounding properties of the decision and just allow them to come and ask questions of the staff, that's certainly something we can do.
Okay, because that would pacify me, and it would also allow the neighbors an opportunity to speak to it and get more information about it, but would not require the full public hearing process, correct?
Correct.
I would like to move that we accept this proposal, but with the addition of a new paragraph, subsection E, to 18.88.6060, stating that within 10 calendar days of the zoning administrator's action on the application, notice of the establishment of a large family daycare home shall be sent to all registered owners of property located within 100 feet of the subject property. So I would just like to add that paragraph to the changes that staff has proposed. And then staff, you can be in charge of what that letter would say to make it clear.
Sure.
I would second that, and I also, as a realtor, I also agree. I mean, we like everything. Disclosure is one of the important things in real estate. And if I was selling a house or someone was buying a house, I would for sure want them to know that before they bought, or sold their house, if they needed to disclose that to a buyer. So because that would be so important, and it might be upsetting to some people if they moved in and then had a large daycare next door, if they're like a day sleeper or whatever. So,
right.
Councilmember Franklin.
So our existing $165 application fee stands.
Yes.
My question, and that's a one-time fee.
Yes.
My question is, do we have any way to request a renewal of that, is that set by state law? Because my concern is we're going to have significant new enforcement burden for enforcing the code for the limited things we can control, and are we going to have enough revenue here to mitigate the cost of code enforcement associated?
I'd say Mr. Conley answered earlier that we haven't had many complaints. Certainly that hasn't come to his attention, and I don't think that has come to code enforcement's attention. So I don't think it's been a burden from a city staffing standpoint.
But as we see a dramatic increase in the size of these businesses, the almost doubling of the number of children served, right?
But we're not, so with this, the code is staying the same with the exception of the public hearing process.
Okay.
So it's not changing, this isn't new to changing up to 14 people. The code has been the way it has been since.
Okay.
We adopted it in, 2005 or something.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers my questions.
And I would also like to maybe see in the letter if it could say per the state law or something, so they know that it isn't just our city that's saying it's okay to.
Yes, I will make it abundantly clear. Thank
you.
you.
That it's the state law. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. I appreciate your time and your information.
And so when you made your motion, you closed the public hearing, right?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. Are we all set then? Okay. So are we all set? Please cast your votes. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Moving on to our discussion items. Items scheduled for discussion generally require a detailed explanation by staff or the agency member that has requested the item. So tonight we have 4 discussion items. The first one is cultural arts production schedule and admission prices. And Recreation and Community Services Director Theron Dickman will introduce this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, we're here to present information regarding a proposal from the Cultural Arts Division of Recreation and Community Services. And here with me tonight is Program Manager Daniel Case, and he will be presenting the proposal and staff report.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here tonight. We just concluded a fantastic summer season and are looking forward to our next. As we move forward to our summer of 2017 and our events that are happening in 2017, these are the proposed changes that we're looking to make with our ticket pricing structure. Currently, we would like to go ahead and maintain the ticket prices as they are, or what we just did this summer. We had made a dramatic change into the reserved lawn and done some other structural things, and would like to continue that process as people have learned into next summer without raising the ticket prices, with a few minor adjustments, and that is in the general lawn for the adult ticket price. And then the last one is for, in our presenting, would like to make a slight change on the Club M pricing for the 28 season. The largest change that we'd like to do is a positive thing. We have reached a point where we think we're in growth, and we want to continue with that growth. And with that, we would like to add the third Wednesday to the third week. When we added the third week of performances back in 2011, we added the third week, but we only added 3 of the 5 performances that we're contracted with our union actors, leaving us the ability, as we grew, to add a show as things have grown. And so we are looking at that. We just had a great season with an 8% growth, and we would like to continue that. We also had about 11% growth on subscriptions, so we'd like to continue that. So with that being said, do I point over here? Oh. All right, thank you. So for the subscription pricing, which is the subscription ticket that gets you for the summer shows to all 4 shows in the different pricing levels, there will be no change for 2016. That's the breakdown. It's an average of about 25% discount. If you were to buy all 4 shows singly versus the subscription package, you're saving about 25% on average. Again, the single ticket pricing, the Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, and then the Friday and Saturday, the only change is a minor change in the adult lawn, which is doing a $2 increase from 15 to 17 and 20 to 22. What that does is just gives us a more balanced break between the different pricing levels on the adult level. It puts a $10 difference between the reserve lawn and the general lawn, and we'd like to just make that slight change on that. At Club M, we have an $80 ticket that provides you a 3-course dinner and a show. We just, with the popularity and the sellouts, and already the sales into our upcoming cabaret season with Molly Ringwald and Mandy Harvey and the 4 freshmen, we're seeing a lot of people that are excited about it, and we think we can give ourselves a little bit more revenue by bumping it up $5, just to give us a little bit more revenue for that program to make it more successful. And then again, the largest change for us will be adding the third Wednesday to the schedule. So the third Wednesday, we're looking at average per performance this year after 52 performances. When you take the revenue we brought in for the season, it averaged about $32,000. So we're going to make a conservative estimate on $30,000 on the added performance for next year, just to be a little conservative on that end. That gives us about $120,000 extra revenue. The 2015 season last year averaged $29,000, so you can see where our increase was this year. The additional expenditures for adding that extra performance per show is $33,500. Most of that is in royalties, the percentage that we owe on the dollar. For every dollar that we make, we have to pay the royalties, and the average is about 12.5%. We have some additional part-time staffing. Obviously, the staffing, the parking, the amp attendants, the ticket staff, and the hourly staff is about $15,900. Utilities is about $1,400, and just the extra materials, having a few more programs, batteries, makeup for that extra show is about $1,200. So the net is $86,500. The impact, again, we're at that growth. We want to continue to foster that growth, and we want to continue growing our subscription base. And with that, we want to have new inventory available. Lots of great seating. When we do renewals with this extra show, there will be some movement as people renew. They get the first chance to go into those seats. Their seats become available, so there will be some movement and then room for growth so we can continue that trend. Subscriptions right now, currently in the orchestra section, which is our prime seating area, is 65%. We're pretty solid. In the outside edges is where the single tickets are, and they're not really always the best seats when you're all the way to the outside. So to give another night to free up, we'll have more available closer to center. And then it opens up the inventory on the single side, which is the greatest value. We want that single ticket. We want more people buying that single ticket in the orchestra section. Current allotment is about 140 seats, so you're looking at about 70 seats per side is what's available on an average nightly basis for single tickets. And again, those are to the outside. The orchestra section itself seats 492 seats. So what it would look like is our first week performances would be the Wednesday through Sunday with a preview night that we have on Tuesday night, which is not in the ticketing, but that we have that for ourselves. The Wednesday through Sunday would be the second week, and then the third week we would now have the third Wednesday, which is in red, the Thursday, Friday, and then we would close Saturday. And then that Sunday is another potential growth down the line where we would take an opportunity and add a performance on that day. At this point, we're holding back on that because it does help us transition from one show to the next to have that day to get the set down and load the trucks on Monday, and it just gives us a little head start. But if we get to that point where we are again, need more inventory, when we become more and more of that destination here in Vista, that would be the option in the future. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, I should mention that a year ago, September, it was suggested, I believe, by Councilman Franklin and then Councilman Campbell that we add a Vista resident discount to the Moonlight portfolio. And we had talked internally, and I'd shared with you that what we came up with was for subscriptions in the future, when there would be an increase in subscriptions, we would go ahead and lock in the rates at the current level for Vista residents, and that the increase would go to non-Vista residents. We didn't mention it this time in the agenda report or the presentation, and the reason for that is because we're not looking at raising subscription rates this year. But in the future, if we do propose that to the council, we would propose a Vista resident rate.
Okay. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions that I want to go over in terms of ticket sales and pricing and some models that maybe you've looked at, maybe we haven't. And one of them is I'm looking at the pricing here, and I see we've lumped together senior, student, and military independent rate for Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday tickets. It's $48. That's $4 less than the regular adult ticket. Mm-hmm. When I look at some other venues and other entertainment venues, that seems like a very small discount for, well, first off, we're grouping them all together, which isn't as normal at most places. So what's the number of tickets that we sell to that category on a given night? Do we know the average ticket sale for an orchestra seat for military, student, senior? Well,
in the orchestra section, again, because we're highly subscribed, that number will be obviously lower because just the inventory that's available. Most of the when the families come and they are bringing children, they are mostly sitting in the lawn areas, and that's where they're going to be sitting. If they do sit in the orchestra and reserved seats, where we have right now, where our pricing is and the balance between the different sections is between $10 and $15. There's not a lot of room in there. And so for us, it's a very tight window. The more you discount, and we do have a lot of seniors that come to our programming, and a family shows we have a lot of children. And when you take that discount and you start taking that, the average ticket price goes down, and then you have to balance it. Where does that revenue come from to make up for that? So we're in a very tight window, especially because we have to, with the general fund and also with the support of our nonprofit fundraising partner.
I totally understand how that
Yeah.
works in terms of you lower the average ticket price, your overall revenue goes down. But what I'm looking at is what is our total number of average ticket sales per show, and then what's our capacity for those shows total.
Correct. So the average tickets for this summer for the for the season, from a season perspective, we averaged 1,113 tickets a night as a season.
And then I know because I was at the closing show for the year, we had about, 1,600?
We had we had just 1,700, yes.
Right. So we're obviously, there's a much higher capacity of, say, 600 tickets that could easily fit in per night per show. So as someone who's in marketing myself, I know that right now we're here, say we're averaging 1,100 tickets per show. Obviously, if we're only selling 1,100 tickets at the $48 average or $48 price point, just for say, and we lower it to $44, then we would lose money. But the question is, I think, is would we gain new comers to the Moonlight? And I think that's the biggest challenge that we face to continue to grow and offset the general fund subsidy to our cultural arts program like the Moonlight, is getting additional people to come to the Moonlight. Because I think everyone that I've spoken to that was their first show said, I'm going to come back.
Right.
I didn't even know this was here. And that's the case I think you hear across the board is, wow, I didn't know this was here. I wish I would have known about it earlier, and I'm going to come to every show in the future. So I think what we need to work on doing is not just setting our pricing to say, this is our universe of people now, and if we lower our pricing, we'll make less money because our average ticket is going to be less. But we need to look at it and go, okay, how do we get more Vista residents to go to the Moonlight? How do we get more tourists to go to a show? And I think by attracting one is students. I don't know of many students, whether they're high school or college students, that are going to go pay $48 or $40 for reserve seating for a ticket if they've never been before.
Right.
But if we can entice them with some lower ticket pricing, which, yes, will lower the dollar amount, but it's going to be new people that are coming that otherwise wouldn't have come. And I think that's what we need to look at doing and work on a solid marketing plan to increase the revenues long term and in the immediate. Because if we're able to attract 100 new people a night, say the tickets are only going to be $20 a ticket, but that's an extra $100 or 100 tickets sold at $20 that otherwise wouldn't have been sold. That's the direction I'm coming at this from. I know you hate to see the average ticket price drop. That's a challenge in the immediate. But if we can get 50 to 100 new people for every show, come next season and the next season after, we're not going to have 1,100 tickets per show. We're going to have an average of 1,500 tickets sold per show.
Right.
That's what I'm looking at to do. And that if we sold 1,400 tickets per show, that would, I imagine, nearly eliminate the general fund subsidy that we provide to the Moonlight.
Well, when you look at the capacity of the theater is 2,900, and I want to say 20, maybe a little off, are the hard seats,
right,
broken in two sections. Over 1,100 is the lawn, which is very, very affordable for all families that want to come, especially those that have never been, when an adult is paying $15 and the kids are paying $10.
Right. And so on the reserved lawn, which are priced at $27, $25, and $23, does that sell out every show currently?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Because I know we added that reserved lawn.
And it became very popular very quickly.
Good.
Yes.
So I think if we can market some of those lower dollar ticket prices, especially to our Vista residents, to make sure that people are aware that they can buy those cheaper tickets, that we can discount on some of our reserved seating, which I know doesn't always sell out, because I've been to some shows that there's some significant gaps, even in the hard seats,
right,
that weren't sold out. Our subscriptions are good, but they're not at 100%. So if we can make sure that those sell, and we provide those discounts, especially to our Vista residents that are paying Prop L tax, that are paying local taxes that support the Moonlight, I'm kind of disappointed in our inability to apparently through the software make it to where Vista residents can buy tickets that are, even if it's $2 less or $3 less, on single ticket sales, because that's what I was looking for. Not so much on the subscription side, which are more of our routine moonlight goers, long-term patrons, but having some sort of way to entice current residents of Vista through even modest discounts to come check out the moonlight, come check out the shows, because they're going to come back.
Right.
So is that a software limitation that we're looking at?
So the current thing is that the software cannot do the software doesn't have the capability to automatically do it. It has to be done manually, so it has to be done in person. What we have on the single ticket side is we are at 58% single tickets are done online, and that's including visitor residents. So when you look at that, if we have to do a Vista resident discount in person, do a verification in a different method, and then apply that discount at the sales point, person to person, we're kind of taking away the abilities for the Vista person to just be at home and buy those tickets online when they see them immediately. The software doesn't have a way of verifying that in an online transaction, which is a large percentage of our single sales.
Right. So I understand that, but I think giving people the option to do it, and I know the city manager, we talked about that, giving people the option if they wanted to come in person and buy tickets, it would be something that I would definitely support. And then if they, based on our current limitations, that's an option, but at least I want to give that option to Vista residents to have a modest discount, providing some sort of proof of residency, which I know I have to do frequently at other locations. It's very quick, normally quite painless to do. So I think that that's something we could definitely accommodate in the future for sure, if not currently as I would prefer. So thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for a great report, and congratulations on another spectacular year at the Moonlight. I attended all of the performances, and every year I keep saying, this is the best show ever, or every show I say that, and it really, you just outdo yourself every time. And the Moonlight really is a gem in our city. It is a treasure for our city and our residents. And I applaud your efforts in trying to make it bigger and better. And I agree completely with adding a third night each week, or another night each week, the third Wednesday. So I'm in favor of that. And the $5 increase for Club M, I keep going back and forth on that because that is a fee increase. And I never like to see a fee increase. But when you look at what you get for that, I'm not sure that it was valued correctly to begin with, and we want to make sure that we do that. However, on the general lawn fee increase, we did increase our fees last year when we visit this annually. And I really can't see agreeing to raise the lawn fees again this year on our residents, especially since we have talked for the last 2 or 3 years about a discount for Vista residents who are already paying for this facility through their taxes and Prop L. So I would like to ask my colleagues, because I would like to approve the third night and the adjustment on Club M, but I am not in favor of raising the rates on the lawn fees. So I would request that we separate the vote into 2 or 3 votes, if my colleagues would be amenable to doing that. So I know we have other speakers ready to speak, so when we're ready to vote on this, that would be my request, is to separate out the fee for the lawn and have that as a separate vote.
Councilmember Aguilera.
Congratulations on a very successful year again. Did have some great shows. I enjoyed it. Couple things, I guess, to maybe work on Councilman Campbell's request. I do agree that we should look at some options for trying to get more people in, and there's that fine point. You can discount to $5, and you're only going to get so many people, or you might even sell the place out, but you're not going to make any money. And that's critical when the city's already subsidizing something like the Moonlight. And I think that you're working very hard, staff's working very hard to try to eliminate that subsidy, and I'm very much in agreement in that. So I think maybe if we can figure out, is there a way to track how many military are getting a discount now, or how many seniors or students?
Yeah, those are all price points, and I can run a report on that.
Because I think you have to look at that, because you have to look at how many military are actually interested, and what do they normally buy? Are they buying lawn seats, or are they buying orchestra? That's going to be a critical number to know in order to make that decision.
If I may speak on that, that is one where the military does have to present their ID in person. They can't buy that online because there's no way to verify the military discount. Otherwise, everyone will just click military.
Right. And, the other part of that, and I think the most important part of that, is if you want to offer a military discount, it's more significant than what we're currently offering. I think it has to be in conjunction with a marketing plan. And I think that would be essential. And if you want to bring in more students, the same thing. We need to market to families that have children, or market directly to the schools to see if we can actually attract more people that way. And then in conjunction with this price discount, the marketing plan is going to be a lot more successful, and hopefully we can. But I think there's still a lot more information needs to be gleaned from your future report, I guess. Mm-hmm. Sounds like. Sorry. But I think that kind of carries over to this discount on or the price increase, on the general lawn. Although I don't like to see prices go up, I think the idea of trying to recover costs on something that we're already subsidizing is a good thing, and I think I'm okay with leaving it the way it is. I understand where you're coming from, and I'd be happy to vote on it separately, but I just can't agree to that. I think right now, when we're trying to eliminate that subsidy, I think a price increase, if staff believes that will help that area, then I'm in support of it. Thank you. Thank you for your report and time.
Thank you.
If I might add, one of the challenges that we have right now in particular is that with the Moonlight, we have our wonderful partnership with the Moonlight Cultural Foundation. And in the past, we were used to receiving about $300,000 from them in contribution. And now that for this fiscal year, it's dropped down to $200,000. And it may go even lower in the future. And so we're trying to do everything to be creative, to add the show, to go out in the community and form new corporate partnerships and those type of things, just to keep the subsidy at the level that's expected at the $200,000 amount.
Well, and I would want to know, like, what seats are going to be discounted. Like when you go to a Broadway show, sometimes I think they have seats that you can wait in line at, is it will call it? You wait, and if there's anything available, you can buy it at a cheaper price. I don't know if that would be something you could do it at your ticket booth. You had certain seats. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I want to know, what seats, if you're going to offer ongoing discount like to them, what seats are you going to allow them? What ones, what ones do you put out there? So it would have to be like on a show-by-show basis, I would think. I don't know. Anyway, so Councilmember Campbell.
Just to follow up, I just wanted to say I don't think I made it abundantly clear that I think this last season was a great season. Staff is doing a tremendous job with the quality of the productions of the shows, the regional recognitions and beyond, that the Moonlight is getting the accolades are great for the image of the city. The more people know about the Moonlight, the more they know about, and hear the words, the city of Vista, which is great for our marketing, the brand of the city. I think it is truly our crown jewel of the city, and I want to see the Moonlight continue to grow and thrive into the future. And I just don't want my comments about the ticket pricing and sort of my displeasure with the lack of discount for local residents to come across in a negative way. I think that the Moonlight is, you guys are doing a great job, and I look forward to a tremendous season next year as well.
We appreciate your support. Thank you.
Councilmember Franklin.
Well, I would just join with my colleagues in congratulating you on a great year. And my general philosophy is cost of everything usually goes up on an annual basis or over the course of the year. Employees expect to receive pay increases, and people expect the cost of tickets to go up too. I think that having a management approach that says we're going to make small, targeted increases when we need to recover costs, rather than waiting to have a large increase that's very noticeable and off-putting to patrons, I think that that's, to my mind, preferable. And so I'm going to trust your judgment on these increases, and I appreciate the direction that we're headed in. And I agree with Councilmember Aguilera's comments about, this is a wonderful resource for our residents, a tremendous jewel of our community, but we do want to make sure that we can mitigate the subsidy to the greatest amount possible. So I would support the proposal that you're making tonight.
It's interesting because I was going to say exactly that. It's better to make small increments than to wait a long time and have to make a bigger increment. And so it's better just a little bit if you need to do that. So, and your season was, as always, as outstanding. It gets better all the time. So I think it makes us more of a destination city. And so it isn't just beer. It's like we have the Moonlight Amphitheater too, which is.
But you can get great beer.
You can have a beer, yeah. So anyway, so I'm good with that. So, Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually, they did have our local beers there, too, which was nice to see. I think that's important, actually. I just wanted to make a motion to accept staff's recommendation on this.
Okay, I'll second that. And Deputy Mayor Rigby?
I was going to move that we keep, I was going to make a different motion on the lawn tickets because I will have to vote no on that motion because it includes a fee increase on something I can't vote on. So I was going to ask if we could vote first. I would make the motion to keep the general lawn admission tickets at the current rate of $15.
Is that a substitute motion?
Substitute motion, whichever way we have to do it, and then we can vote on the other one after.
And I'll second the substitute motion.
Thank you.
Yes, it is a substitute motion.
So state your motion again.
My motion was that we keep the general lawn tickets at the current rate of $15.
So you're splitting the item
I'm splitting the item. I'm just pulling the lawn ticket price out from the other two items.
And okay, do you have a second?
It was seconded.
Okay, can we vote on that?
So your motion, if I'm correct, is to keep it at 15.
Yes.
So a yes vote keeps it at its current, a no vote would
Raise it.
raise it.
Correct.
Did everybody vote? Well, how does that go? We have two yes, 2 no's, and 1 abstain.
Motion fails.
Then I will make another substitute motion. I'm trying to think how we would do this then. To approve the ticket prices as proposed.
Did we have a motion that was in
We have a main
Okay,
motion.
the motion
The
substitute
vote's on the
motion
main
failed, so-
motion.
Let's vote on the main motion. Call for the question on that. Okay, that motion passes with 2 no votes. So then, with that, we're moving on. Moving on to our second discussion item, which is our fiscal year 2015-16 fourth quarter report. And our Finance Director, Treasurer Lauren Worm, will provide the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members. The fiscal year 2015-16 fourth quarter report serves as a summary and comparison of budget to actual results for the current and prior fiscal years. The agenda report includes recommendations of future uses of the available year-end fund balance a proposed update of the year-end fund balance policy, and a proposed new budget policy for adoption. Total general fund revenues were $74.5 million, compared to $69.1 million in the prior year, which is an increase of $5.3 million, or 7.7%. A large portion of the increase was due to growth in sales tax and property tax receipts. The growth in sales tax is primarily due to a final true-up payment for the triple flip state withholding in a single business with larger than normal sales. These one-time monies were excluded in the original budgetary estimates as a safe business practice so that one-time monies are not relied upon each year. Property tax receipt growth is due to assessed property valuations continuing to increase year over year. Total general fund expenditures were $67.3 million compared to $69.2 million in the prior year, which is a decrease of $1.9 million or 2.8%. A large portion of the decrease was due to a one-time CalPERS safety plan payment of $4.5 million in the prior year. Removing this one-time expenditure results in a year-over-year increase of $2.6 million over the prior year. After funding reserves and designations, programming $1.5 million into the fiscal year 2016-17 operating budget, and building the general fund emergency reserves for the one-time triple flip monies of $2.7 million, $6.8 million remains in available general fund year-end fund balance. Future project uses of $4.975 million is recommended, with the remaining $1.8 million proposed to fund general fund emergency reserves. This would bring the emergency reserves balance to $16.8 million, or 25.87% of the 2016-17 operating budget, and accomplishing the City Council's goal of a 25% reserve. Exhibit 11 on page 25 is the proposed updated year-end fund balance policy with track changes. The updated policy's intent is to better reflect City Council's priorities, as well as provide the City Council flexibility to use one-time funds available at year-end for high-priority community projects. The emergency reserves goal in the policy was updated from 20% to 25% per City Council direction. Starting on page 27 is a new proposed policy to be adopted by City Council as a best practice recommendation. The proposed policy formalizes the city's existing policies and procedures for development, adoption, and implementation of the city's annual operating and capital budgets. Page 2 of the agenda report includes proposed city manager recommendations of future uses of the available fund year-end fund balance. This includes downtown lighting, infrastructure, and wayfinding, Wavewater Park pump purchases, Bringle Terrace Park well installation, solar at Public Works, vacant property purchase to remove blight and add future park amenities. There are also 2 other suggestions by members of the City Council for public art and a Caltrans capital project, which are included in the report. The recommendation is to receive and file the fiscal year 2015-16 fourth quarter financial report, as well as adopt 3 resolutions amending the 2016-17 operating budget for the future uses of available year-end fund balances, amending City Council Policy 200-19, which is use of year-end fund balance, and adopting City Council Policy 100-18, which is the budget policy. So that concludes my presentation. What questions do you have?
And to jump in here with the 2 suggestions, public art being $50,000, that was brought forward by Councilman Campbell, who asked for that to be put on this item. And then as well as the Caltrans capital project in $250,000, that amount was not brought forward by Councilman Franklin. We put that amount in at the staff level, but the issue of making improvements to the Caltrans right-of-way was put forth by Councilman Franklin. So I would suggest that possibly Councilman Campbell could discuss the public art issue and then move on to the Caltrans issue with Councilman Franklin.
Is that okay? Because Councilman Franklin has his button pushed. Okay. Start with Councilman Campbell.
Thank you. So just, I have other questions about other portions of this item, but just to address the city manager's item or that I requested regarding public art. You know, we have a lot of public art in our downtown and throughout our city. Frequently, the concerns that are brought forward to me by the artists and by the art community are that we don't, as a city, invest in public art. Most of those pieces are on consignment and could leave should someone purchase them at any time. It's difficult for the artists to continue to make significant investment in the construction of those beautiful art pieces that go throughout our downtown and really bring a lot of people into Vista. You know, I was just in San Diego this morning at the Regional Chamber of Commerce's Public Policy Committee meeting, and after that meeting, someone approached me who's with a larger business in San Diego County and said, you know, Vista's downtown is becoming such a destination. Her and her significant other try to come to our downtown as frequently as possible because, they said, of the restaurants, the breweries, the public art. So I think it's important that we continue that forward momentum by making investment at the city level to provide additional stipends, potentially make some purchases of some public art. We talked previously about the proposed fee on new development in the downtown specific plan area to create some revenue. But I think as a city, we're at a point on solid fiscal footing to be able to invest a relatively minor sum into the overall benefit that a $50,000 annual investment, or at least this one-time money investment, would provide in spurring additional art pieces to be created throughout downtown and the downtown specific plan area would be my goal. I think that everything that we can do to beautify our downtown will help attract additional businesses by attracting additional tourism and making a friendlier, more welcoming environment for our downtown. So I requested that we look at using some one-time money through the year-end fund balance to spur that process along.
Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm real excited about the fact that we have this basically extra money. And I think it's from good work on staff side, prudent management of our finances. And, you know, it goes with City Council's current goal of maintaining fiscal sustainability. But I know for myself personally, when I was first elected, one of the things that I wanted to make sure we did was raise our emergency reserves, which we've gone ahead and done that. And I'm very happy and proud that we've reached that 25% mark. I've told some people on staff that I would, you know, it's not a stopping point for me. Maybe we won't, you know, go ahead and be as aggressive towards increasing that emergency reserve. But now that we've hit our initial goal, but I do want to see it continue to increase incrementally at this point. Having said that, you know, just because we're in a good financial shape right now, I don't know that it's prudent to carve out this $50,000 for the public arts, although I do personally support public art, and I know the city has as well supported it in the past, and will continue to do that in a lot of different ways. It has been stated even this evening that we have quite a bit of art that is attracting people already, and so I don't see a lack of it, and I don't know that it's the city's place. I'm not sure that everybody in our city would support just a random 50,000 being not thrown out, but, you know, just I think if we had a piece that we wanted to purchase and we could all sit here and discuss that piece, I would be willing to listen. I know. Well, I do have a question. Do we purchase that piece that is in our roundabout?
Yeah, that's correct. We gave a $10,000 stipend or fee to the the maker of it. And
That's what I
artist.
thought. I just couldn't remember exactly.
Our property.
I do remember that we had a discussion on that. Not everybody was necessarily in agreement or which is what happens with art, right? It is a personal thing, and not everybody likes the same piece of art. But we did have a discussion about that piece. It did cost the city $11,000 to have that piece installed. But I think that's fair to the citizens, to the taxpayers, to say, hey, I like that. Let's discuss it. This is a good way to spend our money. But I think just throwing $50,000 towards art in general, I think we're opening up a can of worms here, and I can't support it.
I see lots of people wanting to talk here. Okay, Councilmember Franklin.
I want to compliment the city staff on the public art and the council and just the city in general. We have a lot of public art when we go to the downtown. We have kites all over the city. We have the new piece on the roundabout. We are having a lot of robust discussion about public art, which I am excited about, and I think it's wonderful. What I really, really like that the staff has done is they have used, I don't know what the right word is, I think an enterprising model where they have given an opportunity to artists to display very prominently their work. And yeah, occasionally somebody likes a piece of art enough to buy it, and that's tremendous because that gives a new opportunity to an artist to present a new piece. And I actually really value some of the turnover because, as was said, every piece of art is a personal taste. Some of it I like tremendously. Some of it I say, that's really interesting, but maybe it's not a 100-year piece. Maybe it's, be nice to look at for 7 years. I think having some turnover of the artwork, I mean this in the most sincere sense, I think it actually increases people's desire to come and see the new pieces. And I think for us to have an enterprising model where we are creating a studio all throughout our city for these artists, a canvas for them to paint, is tremendous. And I have to applaud all that we've done because we've created that environment. And I think that that's the kind of model that we want to continue to grow and pursue. The reason I push my button is because I'm going to keep coming after this issue. I don't believe we have enough sheriff deputies, sworn deputies in our complement that serve our city. I don't believe that 84 is enough. I think that we should be closer to 1 per 1,000 citizens in our city. And I don't believe that our number of sworn deputies has grown to keep pace with inflation. And I personally, in my life as a resident of the city, I come into contact with, and generally in some sense, am the victim of crime, or the properties that I utilize in my business are victimized by crime on a somewhat regular basis. I observe it on a regular basis, whether it's metal theft or illegal dumping or panhandling or whatever the issue be. I don't think I will not look at any citizen of this city and tell them, job done on public safety. No more we can do. I truly feel that we can do better. I truly feel that more deputies on our streets will make our city a cleaner, safer, better place for our residents. And I want to see us take, and it's $265,000 per sworn deputy. That's what the sheriff's department charges up for one more deputy. I'd be just delighted to have one more deputy, and next year I'd ask you for another one, and maybe you'd agree and maybe you wouldn't. We've had multi-million-dollar surpluses for the last several years, and we really, I think we really need to prioritize public safety. I've said it before, and I have to constantly remind myself, in my humble opinion, it is the #1 priority of the city as an organization is to provide robust public safety, a safe and a clean city that we're all feel really good about our families living in. That is a tremendously important issue to me. I would ask that we include, now, Mr. Johnson, we're not are we making a final decision to spend these year-end monies now? Because we're not at the year-end, we're a ways away from it.
No, so this is for the closeout of the 15-16 year-end fund balance from our last fiscal year that ended on June 30th. So yes, we are asking you to make a decision to close out this evening.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to make a motion to include $265,000 to increase our complement of deputies, sworn deputies, from 84 to 85. That's very important to me. I really feel like it's incredibly important. I understand it's an ongoing year after year increase, not a one-time expenditure, but I think it is so important that we begin to make public safety the priority that it's got to be. That I want to make that motion because that is really something I'm very passionate about. And I promised people when I asked them to elect me to this office that I would doggedly pursue that, and that's really important to me.
Okay. Councilmember Campbell.
Well, I'm going to address the one issue that we were on and not go off onto a completely different path on this one just yet. In regards to the $50,000 on the public art, I wasn't suggesting that we just throw $50,000 at public art. I think it's part of a budgeting process. And one of the significant challenges we have currently is we do have a public arts commission, but they don't really have a budget. And that's the concern that I've heard from multiple public art commissioners is we can do so much more if only we had a budget to work with. And ultimately, any expenditures, I think, of any significant amount out of that $50,000 would come back to the council for approval. And I believe that we had budgeted for the public art piece in the roundabout on Paseo Santa Fe. Is that correct? Previously, we had talked about that.
That was part of the Paseo Santa Fe project.
Right.
There was the stipend to the artist as well as the cost to install the infrastructure to put the art on.
Right. So it was a budgeted process. It wasn't something that, as a council member, one of us brought forward and just says, hey, I like this art piece, let's go buy it. Because if that's the case, we would come back, and I'm sure we'd have the discussion of, well, it's a great piece of art, but we don't have it budgeted. And we'd have to go through that whole process. That's why I wanted to start that discussion and start that process by allocating in a budgeting process the $50,000 sort of earmarked or tagged in the budget for public art so that the Public Arts Commission, the city staff, the council knew that there are some funds available to spur additional art opportunities. And one of the benefits to having that budget, that money budgeted, is that we would be eligible, I imagine, for additional grants through the county and through other agencies for public art with matching funds being available. So that's why I wanted to budget this, not say, let's go spend $50,000 on public art and buy a piece of art for $50,000. That's not where I was coming from. I think I hear your concerns because I have those same concerns. I think that would be an unwise investment. But I think by budgeting it, doesn't mean we have to spend it all, but it does mean that it enables staff and enables the Public Arts Commission to look for those additional opportunities to enhance their community and seek additional matching funds, knowing that we have funds available and budgeted.
I guess just to carry on the art thing, and then I'll get to the deputy mayors. But my question: do you remember the bars in Carlsbad? So I would just say, who would choose the art? Who would negotiate the price on the art pieces? Who would keep the money? I mean, who in their account? I would. Did we increase the money for kites? The people that do the kites, that would be maybe you get maybe a little better quality kites if we increase that money a little bit. I don't know if that would be part of that. So maybe there needs to be a different discussion on this. I don't know.
I think how to spend it might be a different discussion item going forward into the future.
Who keeps the money? Is it in the budget at the city? Is that where it is?
Yes. In any expenditure.
Just give it to the art commission as their budget?
No. Okay. But enabling the Art Commission to know that there is money should they have a request, because currently if they have a request for a new mural, maybe it's $2,500 to the artist or $3,000 to the artist that they want for supplies, but they want to make it. There's no money available, period. There's no process for them to request that to come forward.
Okay, so I'll move on to Deputy
slope.
Mayor. Pardon? Still a slippery slope. Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to say thank you for a very well-written and thorough report on our financial outlook. It has been a long 4 years, and some of the prudent financial practices that we have put into place that we've had long discussions on, not just on this topic, have really, really helped the city, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. And I thank you and I thank staff for all the work you've done in direction. And increasing our reserves to 25% was a council goal, and I agree that it's not necessarily a place that we want to stop. That was an immediate goal for this council, but it does afford us a little bit of breathing room, although we should look at raising at our next workshop, revisiting our goal of where we do want to land with our reserves. So thank you for that. We've done a really great job. I'm very proud of where we are. And we have a few things on this list, but we've been talking about public art primarily right now. And my feeling on the public art is when we've had requests for supplies, I recall we have voted on them. So I think we do have a mechanism already in place for public art if we want to purchase it or if we want to do supplies or stipends. I'm not sure that we need to reinvent that particular wheel at this time. And with monies in the general fund, we can visit that as those items come up, and if the commission sees something, I'm just not sure that we need to go off on another track on that one. But I do want to talk about what Councilman Franklin brought up, which is what my point is with some of these end balance uses, the year-end fund balance uses that we hadn't talked about, that wasn't on the list that he brought up, was public safety. And so I do think that that's something that we need to talk about, and understanding that we're talking about one-time monies here in public safety additions are ongoing costs that we need to find the monies to maintain those. But I think if we are going to have a conversation about public safety funding and increasing, we also have to look at the 4th ambulance that we want to try to get back in service. And I think before we go and decide whether it's sheriffs or fire, perhaps we can have another discussion on the particulars and the data and the details between the different public safety arenas that we want to talk about. So that is something, but I'm not sure that tonight is the place to have that particular discussion, but to perhaps allocate money or to come back with a discussion on public safety funding. So, but my particular issue, besides the public safety, was I do see on here Community Benefit Assessment District creation. And I know that we had talked a couple of months ago about that. We had put it out for a survey. And if the city manager could remind us where we are with that survey and what had happened with that before we talk about allocating the $40,000 to the creation.
So the $40,000 is to set aside in case there is support to go forward with the vote.
Okay.
We wouldn't just allocate it. So that would be the issue there. If you want more specifics on where we're at with the survey, I could have Kevin Ham, our Economic Development Director, come up. But the $40,000 is just to set it aside in case there is a reason to go forward with the vote, in case there's a potential positive outcome. If there's not, then we will not utilize that $40,000, and we would come back to the City Council to reappropriate it for something else.
Excellent. You answered my question. Thank you very much.
Sure. If I could add, just on the public safety issue, whether it's an additional sheriff's deputy, whether it's the 4th ambulance, in my opinion, the appropriate time to have that discussion. I know Councilman Franklin and I have had many discussions, and I told him that we would be looking to include that and having council's direction when we reconvene the budgeting process formally with the City Council in March, when we're setting the goals for, not the goals, but the budget for the following year and allocating resources as opposed to the one-time monies.
There'll be fire and sheriff? I mean, all public safety?
No, what I'm saying is we'll have that discussion to get your direction before we set the draft budget when we have our March workshop, as we call it, and do budget overview. We would get your direction, and if the City Council wants to put an additional deputy in the budget, then we'll look and figure out how to do that, as well as have a discussion on the 4th ambulance.
Yeah, so we can actually have a regular discussion about it, because I'd like to know crime statistics and all that, the sheriff and, okay.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, the appropriate time to do that is while we prepare the budget, but to do it in March so it's not forgotten or left off the draft budget that comes before you in May.
Okay. Councilmember Franklin.
Well, and I understand the difference between a one-time expenditure and a regular annual one. So, but I wasn't going to miss the opportunity. Our city manager knows I'm quite passionate about this subject, and I really think it's important. Can I ask a math question? I'm not very good at it. I always have to use my calculator. It says we've got $6.836 million, and of that, 2.765 is our triple flip one time, and we're going to put that in the general fund emergency reserve. Out of that 6.836, if you subtract 2.765, and then you subtract the 4.795 that we're going to spend down here, we're $724,000 over. I did that twice. I don't know. You can follow up with me on that. I just seem like we're missing $750,000 somewhere.
So there's a transposition error on page 2. It's 4975.
Oh. Well, okay, so then we're $924,000 short.
And the triple flip money would be added to the 6.8 million. We shouldn't be subtracting that.
Okay, so then, okay, that's the reason I wanted to do that math, is it looks like there's remaining balance that we haven't allocated here.
It's all accounted for.
So you're saying that the 4,975 plus the plus the 2,765 equals 6.836.
Plus the 1,861 that's proposed to go into emergency reserves.
Okay, I see. So we're putting 1.8 in addition to the one-time triple flip money.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I understand. Okay. Very good. Answers that question.
Good question.
Thank you.
Is that more?
That's all I've got.
Okay.
Right now.
Councilmember Campbell?
Thank you. I just wanted to address and follow up. Councilman or Deputy Mayor Rigby made the comment that I was going to make when we got back on the topic of public safety is, first, these are one-time monies, not to be used, in my opinion, for ongoing expenses. That would be very unwise. Secondly, we have a lot of public safety needs, not just within the law enforcement side, but also within our fire paramedic side. So I think we need to have that come back as a discussion. You mentioned the 4th ambulance, which I think is very important that we do look at as a priority to add back. And Councilman Franklin does make a good point about the sheriff's deputies' additional law enforcement. So I think we need to have an in-depth discussion on public safety as a topic in general for the city. Perhaps we could have some reports from our sheriff's captain, our fire chief. What are their needs that they see? Do they see that they're meeting the needs of their respective departments with current funding? What are some options? Where are our revenues at? So that needs to come back.
Like a workshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we could probably do that sooner than March, though. I'm not sure how the city manager would feel about that.
I'll let him plan that in his schedule.
Plan that into the schedule of a workshop.
We don't need to decide that tonight. Yeah, he can plan it in his schedule. So.
That's all the comments that I have.
Councilor Aguilera.
I think all my comments are made between everybody here. I'm certainly in support of our sheriff and, of course, our fire department as well. And if we can find monies in our regular budget to increase those efforts, I'm very much in support. I think we all are, really. So I'm open to having that discussion, but I don't think the one-time monies are appropriate for that. Thank you.
I agree. And I also, I think our emergency reserves, I would like to, I think it's, when I first got on the council, our reserves were 3%. So every year that's like 18 years ago, but now we're at 25%, which I think is great, but I'd like to see it go to 30. I'd like to see 50, but I'll be patient. I don't think I'll be here by then. So anyway, so I'd like to see it increase to 35% or 30% or 35 eventually. So, but slow increments.
So are you suggesting to change the policy, or are you just...
Oh, I'd love to change a policy. Can I change a policy?
Well, yeah, you certainly can. I just want to make sure.
Just like asking?
And I think we have more on this item because we hopefully will hear from you on your decision on public art officially, and then we will get to Councilman Franklin's Caltrans.
Caltrans, okay. Okay, so I'd like to recommend we go from 25 to 30%. I'd like to increase our emergency reserves. So I'll call Councilmember Aguilera.
I would agree with that. Over the next 5 years.
Okay. Make that our goal. And then I'll go to Deputy Mayor. Oh, did you have more? Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, it sounded to me like we had all discussed what we had to discuss, so I was going to move that we receive and we file the fiscal year 2015-16 fourth quarter financial report as it's been presented. And I'm thinking we need a different motion on each one of these, the remaining three.
Yeah, and the additional suggestions? Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I would like, my motion is to approve, to receive and file the report, not including the year-end fund uses. That would be a separate motion.
Oh.
Can I do that? Or
No, that we need a motion to receive and file.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need a
Really, you
motion.
need
I
a
thought you meant you were going to make a motion to take everything except for those last two things.
You need a motion for 2, 3, and 4 on the resolutions.
Right. So then I would move that we approve the recommended uses of the year-end fund balance and amending the operating budget with the exception of the public art and the Caltrans project.
Second, anybody? Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so should we vote on that and then we'll take the other two? Okay. Please cast your votes on that. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. So then we'll go with that. Should we go back to public art first and then go on to yours? Okay. Let's solve the public art. Is Daryl telling me something? We're Okay. So, Councilmember Campbell, do you want to finish us up on that, or?
It doesn't sound like there's a consensus to move forward with allocating funds in the budget process on public art at this time.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't sound like we have the support on that. So, okay. So then we'll move to Caltrans.
By the way, just closing out the public art issue, I'd really like to see what we could do from the city perspective to assist the public, to assist the Vista Art Foundation. And would it be legal for us to have the city to give birth to a public art foundation?
We have our commission. We already have a public art commission.
We have a commission, but I'm talking about a foundation with which people could make a tax-deductible contribution that the art foundation, the art commission would have purview over spending. Is that? I'm a little off topic, and I apologize. I'll follow up with you on that later. I shouldn't get us off topic there, but that's where I think we should go. And I think as civic leaders, I'm certainly willing to go out and ask people to contribute to that effort. And I think there's a lot of individuals and companies that would really like to help us with that. And I think if we get motivated, we can do a lot more than $50,000, and we can do it through charitable giving. So I'd like to suggest that. Now, I'd ask the city manager to tell us exactly where you arrived at the $250,000. I don't take umbrage with it, but just if you tell us how you arrived at that amount.
Well, I'll be honest. It was a number that we had remaining after the other items were
That's
funded,
fine.
and
That's
it
fair
doesn't
enough.
reflect what it would actually cost to improve an off ramp or such.
So
for
we'll call that
Caltrans.
an up to amount.
Correct.
Okay. So the idea here is we had, as a city, put some general fund money into some improvements that unfortunately were not water-wise, and when the water drought came, they died, and we lost some of those improvements. We're a little smarter now, and we know that we need to be drought-tolerant in everything that we do. In fact, I would almost say as much hardscape as possible, doesn't require any watering, would probably be prudent. But that being said, I truly believe, and I think some of my council members have joined me in this thought in some of our goal planning sessions, that the off-ramps off the SR-78 really are a gateway into our city. It's the first thing you see when you get off the highway. And, Caltrans, for better or worse, and I appreciate that they came in and mowed a couple of the, and they've done a few things, and it's incumbent upon us to be the squeaky wheel to get the grease from them. But I really feel like to build on some of the other good things that we're doing right here with blight elimination, I really feel like we can be a better partner, go to Caltrans, ask for the encroachment permits, and do some intelligent things. I'm not asking for a particular off-ramp, and I'm not suggesting a particular purpose. I would leave that entirely to the staff, okay? What to be done, what to plant, where to put it, which off-ramp, entirely up to the staff. But what we're saying here is we want to set aside this amount of money to do some permanent visual improvements to some of those areas, totally in partnership with Caltrans, to improve the image of our city, to beautify the city, and to really give something durable to the residents that they can enjoy for many years to come in increasing the visual attractiveness of our city. That's the goal here. So with that, I would make a motion that we accept the proposal in front of us for $250,000 for that purpose.
I would second that motion.
Did you have anything else?
I do.
Okay, it's your turn.
Thank you. As we reported a couple of months ago, Councilman Franklin and the City Manager Patrick Johnson and I, we all went down to San Diego to Caltrans headquarters, and we met with the Regional Director, Lori Berman, and a couple of other staff members down there. And we had the conversation about the state of our on-ramps and off-ramps coming into our city. And they've done a good job in being responsive to us overall. There are still some things that we'd like to see done. But I absolutely agree with Councilman Franklin in that this is a good use of some of the monies that we have, because it is a gateway into our community. It's what people see first when they come into Vista, is what they see on the off-ramps. So I agree with this use of the funding, and it does address one of our council goals, which was blight and enhancing the image of Vista. So I would strongly support this idea.
Councilmember Campbell.
I think that we all agree that some of our off-ramps are not what they could be. You drive up to cities in Orange County, and our off-ramps are like we're in a different state altogether. I think that Caltrans has done some work, and prior to you guys going down and meeting with the regional director, I actually met with the undersecretary of the State Transportation Agency about that very issue, and he actually, Laurie Berman, happened to be at the same location at the same time, and he took me over and talked with her and said, hey, Vista has these problems. Let's take care of it. So it's an ongoing process. It takes all of us to continue working with Caltrans and making sure they're aware that we have challenges that they need to continue to address. Trash on the side of the freeway, overgrown landscaping, weeds. It's not just a one-time fix that they need to do. So we need to continue to stay on top of that. In terms of improvements that we can make, I think setting money aside and having staff come back with recommendations as to how we could utilize that funding, whether it's hardscape improvement, whether it's landscaping, whether it may very well include some public art on our off-ramps. That's the type of project that I was actually talking about, could be used from some public art money, would be permanent improvements in high-traffic, high-volume areas like the freeway off-ramps. So I'm supportive of that. I'd like to see what staff can recommend to have come back on those items.
Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I totally agree that our off-ramps can be improved. But I do take issue with spending our money where Caltrans is supposed to be spending basically our money too. Excuse me, hold on. Sorry. That's my only issue with this, is somebody else's responsibility. I know that in the past, Caltrans has not been very cooperative when we've tried to do some work, in their place. They don't like that. We got territories, I guess. So anyhow, I think I would rather see this money used to be set aside. I mean, we've already saved $50,000. potentially here's another 250,000. I'd like to see that 300,000 go towards a future park or park improvements. I think that would be a wise use, and I think that's something that people would really get a lot more enjoyment out of, and potentially that's an improvement on blight in our city as well. So I think that is definitely towards our decrease in blight. And I know my big thing, if we look at, I got my list of goals here, and the last one is Parks and Recreation. And I know we're working on that already, so I'm not saying we're not, but I think I would rather see those money, because I just have a feeling that the road we're heading down with Caltrans on this is going to be a tough one. But I really do appreciate the work that the three of you apparently have done, because I did see some mowing getting done, and so you guys obviously lit a fire under somebody, which is great, and I thank you for doing that, and you guys definitely should be recognized for that. But I have a hard time supporting this.
And I guess my worry is that, at some point they're going to widen our freeway, the 78, and how soon might depend on Prop A, I don't know. But how soon if it's, 5 years or whatever, then they would redo that's the first thing they'll redo is all the exits and entrances to make it wider. So that, we'd be putting money into something that would be, in 3 or 5 years they'd be tearing it out again. So that's my only, my hesitation is kind of there. But anyway, so that's, Councilmember Franklin, I'll go to you.
So I hate to do this, but I have to point out on the Measure A issue that it's the same thinking, that we gave our money to the state, and shame on them. They spent it on something other than the roads. And so we're coming back asking for a tax to fix the roads.
I don't think we're going to debate Prop A here.
No, but I think it's highly relevant to the point that was just made, because...
Well, even without Prop A, they might widen the freeway. How's that?
Yeah, but respectfully, you're missing my point. My point is we gave the money to the state to
What money are you talking about?
Our transportation taxes, our gas taxes. Perhaps if I can finish making my point, my.
As long as it doesn't get in the political arena.
Well, I can't promise that.
No, you can't do that here.
If you'd allow me to finish my thought, the point that I'm trying to make is it's not about Measure A. The point I'm trying to make is we had a debate on this dais about whether to support Measure A, if you'll recall.
We're not talking about that here.
We actually did not.
Please, if you would allow me to finish, I think you'd understand that I'm not really talking about Measure A.
Why do you keep mentioning
it? I think if you would allow me to finish my thought, I think you'd understand.
Finish your
where
thought,
I'm
but
going.
I'll measure off talking about that. I'll be happy. Okay.
Okay. The point is, it's a similar parallel thought in that we gave the money to the state to fix the roads. If you, Madam Mayor, please, if you allow me to just finish the thought, we could be on. We would be
specify what money you're talking about.
The money that we pay the state.
Who pays, and what are you talking about?
Madam Mayor, will you allow me to speak? You're interrupting me, and you won't allow me to finish my thought. Is this? Do I control the floor right now?
You have to be more specific.
Sorry, are those the rules of our chamber, Madam Mayor?
Can I have a point of order?
Yeah. Am I controlling this time, or may I speak uninterrupted? I mean, please.
No,
I'm not.
Point of order, which is a.
What's your? Please make your point of order.
I would suggest that perhaps we can have some decorum and remain on topic on the agenda item would be most appropriate. I think that's the point that, Madam Mayor, you were trying to make. So if Councilman Franklin, I think you're trying to talk about taxes in general concepts, so if you would please,
Yes, if I could be allowed to quickly move past this thought, I would like to finish my thought, which is that it is the same principle by which we as a council voted to support Measure A.
Point of order. Madam Mayor, I believe this is...
It's unbelievable to me that I'm not being allowed to speak free of interruption, and this entire subject matter could be quickly dispensed with as I'm trying to make a simple point if you would simply allow me to finish the time that I've been granted the floor. Please.
Does it have to do with the agenda item?
Yes, it does. And if you would simply allow me to finish my point.
Okay, go for
I am
it.
not making a political point about Measure A.
Okay, go for it.
Okay? I'm truly not. But the point is that Measure A is money that we decided at the local level to spend to affect a goal that we already paid once to the state. The point was made, now I'm going to pivot and talk about the point, if you'll follow me. The point was just made that we shouldn't be spending money on something that's the state's responsibility, talking about the off-ramps. The principle is the same, okay? If we want the job done, we're going to have to do it ourselves. That's the point that's being made here. That was a simple point I was trying to make, and I have to apologize to you because I can't refrain from saying that I don't appreciate that you wouldn't allow me to simply make that point. Now, if I might, I would like to make the point, I would like to alter my motion, as I think that Councilmember Campbell and I simultaneously had what I believe to be a good idea, which is the $50,000 that we did not allocate to the public art purpose perhaps could be included and used and make this amount $300,000, and that $50,000 amount could be used in conjunction, and perhaps the Arts Commission could have purview over how that money might be spent in lasting improvements. A lot of cities have done nice pressed forms into concrete, palm leaves, whatever it may be. The City Art Commission could have some decision-making on that. But perhaps if I find agreement on the council, maybe we can include that amount of money for some permanent, lasting art inclusions. And I certainly think the staff could hold this money until we get a decision on whether or not we think the highway money is going to come through. That's going to happen within the next 28 days. And so the staff could find a use for this that would be, aligned well with the decision of county voters. But to make I'm going to modify my motion, which is that we make a $300,000 commitment here to the off ramps, and $50,000 of it would be for artwork that would permanently beautify these ramps, be it whatever the Public Arts Commission would decide, but it would be something durable and lasting and a permanent benefit. If I find a second for that, then that's how I would like, but I certainly would entertain something that would be similar and to the same objective.
And if I could make a comment here, because we've had interactions with Caltrans in the past, and I do echo the comments that were made. I think they've done a great job over the last 3.5, 4 months in paying attention to the Highway 78 freeway as well as on and off ramps, more so than had been done in the past. But it's a very bureaucratic organization. We've dealt with them on the Sycamore off ramp, which we got a grant for and then ended up paying a lot more in city funds. The $300,000 or the $250,000 is just it's just an amount of money. It certainly would not get us hardscape on any off-ramp in Vista. It's a start. So what I might suggest, depending on where you guys want to go, is coming back to you to have a more detailed discussion with cost and what other agencies have spent or what Caltrans has spent on and off ramps to give you a better perspective of what it would take to make a difference that the council might want to make if you want to go forward with this.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. To the point that Councilman Franklin was trying to make, I think you get to the point that you were trying to make about trying to get money from Sacramento to the local level. You know, Caltrans is a difficult agency to work with. I think we've all seen that, experienced that at the city level. But I think that we can work with them. I've spoken to one of the state transportation agency deputy directors about opportunities within Vista that they can make more significant improvements. I do have a personal invitation to go to Sacramento to meet with the State Transportation Agency regarding that specific item. And I think very strongly that even if it's $300,000, which, as the city manager mentioned, would not go very far towards making significant long-term permanent improvements, it would show a significant commitment on the part of the city that we're very serious about. We want better entry points to the city. We are bisected by the 78 freeway in Vista, unlike a lot of other communities that aren't literally split in two. So most of our traffic does traverse the 78, gets on there, gets off. So we would like, I think, a better visual entry to the city. That helps business, it helps tourism, it provides a first impression for folks coming to the city. I do support combining the public art money that I had proposed with the Caltrans money proposal. This obviously, we're not spending this money tonight, but I think that setting that money aside, proposing it to be used for improvements is a good idea. I know we've talked about this before. Caltrans has a basic standard of this. We want this. And to get there, it's going to take some combination of our local resources and a combination of state resources. We're not going to be able to accomplish it on our own, and they're not going to do it on their own. But I think, just as a side comment, I think the reason we had a little bit of a contentious discussion on that item is it's really not related to any other proposals of tax revenues. This is an issue that's separate. It does go to the concept that it is difficult to get money out of Sacramento, but I think working together we can accomplish that. So I would second your motion.
And if we could be clear that what we're motioning is that we're going to set this $300,000 aside for right now with the intent that the staff will come back with innovative suggestions for how to use these monies to improve our off-ramps, and we'll look forward to those proposals. And certainly if there's a way to offer our money to entice an investment from Caltrans, always want to use our money to have a compounding effect.
Councilmember Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I definitely feel like we're looking at money that's sitting on the table and we're trying to figure out ways to spend it at this point. I would prefer that we just set the money aside. I'm not saying we shouldn't have staff look into this whole off-ramp situation. I definitely think we need to do that. I just don't want to dedicate money to something that we may not spend money on, or we may not find it to be beneficial to spend money on. I think we put the $300,000 away in the bank and let staff do their work. I just don't want to pigeonhole it to off-ramps, because we may find out that that's, after staff looks into this, this doesn't make sense to do this at all. I would love for staff to continue to work with Caltrans, and if we have plans on traveling to Sacramento, what have you, that would be great to have somebody go up there and represent us and try to see if we can get some more work out of Caltrans and let them know how serious we are in Vista about improving our freeway off-ramps. But I think the $300,000, just because it's there, I don't think we should spend it. And I think, if we were going to spend it on anything or set it aside specifically for anything, I would support doing it for our parks.
Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Those are some good points, Councilman Aguilera. I think once we have staff report come back with information about what a limited amount of money, as Mr. Johnson said, $250,000 to $300,000 is a very limited amount of money for us to use for this lofty goal of improving the image of our city as you come in off the freeways. So I would still like to have that information come back as to how far that money would go, what other opportunities are available, whether it's through state funding or federal funding, to enhance those monies, be matching grants, etc. I don't think it's out of the realm for us to discuss it. And if those don't pan out, if it turns out to be more lofty than we can do, then that money absolutely will go to other things and we can discuss those. And I know that in this, we haven't talked about it at all, but in this list of items that we're talking about, there is $2.1 million for land acquisition and park improvements for public amenities. So we have done a lot. We've done several $1 million over the last 4 years in park improvements and amenities, and allocated more than $2 million additional funding for that. So we're not leaving parks out by any stretch, and you know me, that's one of the big items for me in the community is more park amenities and green space. So I still would go with the recommendation because we know staff is going to come back with some information for us to look at, and if we can do it, we can talk about it more, and if we can't, we can pivot and find something else to do with that money.
So we'll set the money aside.
Thank you.
And hold on to it. We'll come back to you with a presentation specifically regarding Caltrans on and off ramps, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And I know Councilman Franklin wants to say something else.
Yeah, Councilmember Franklin.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the table, and if Councilmember Campbell would go a little bit further, I would like to see these monies committed at this time to be spent for the purpose outlined in broad form, the specific projects and specific expenditures to come back to this council for our final approval. If at any time in the future this council decides to take these monies and spend them for another purpose, this council has the right and privilege to do that. But at this time, I'm making a motion that these funds be set and be committed to that purpose. And I think we've got the $250,000 and then the $50,000 specifically for art that would be durable. Is that acceptable to you?
Well, I thought that's what your original motion was.
I just wanted to clarify.
But I think that's acceptable. I mean, they can always be readjusted by a separate vote in the future.
Of course.
So I see no more speakers, so I guess we'll call for the question on the motion. That motion passes then. Okay, so I had one other question because we talked about the year-end fund balance, increasing that to 30%, but I thought we made a motion. Did we make a motion in a second, or did we not?
No,
we didn't. Oh, so if we, I don't know if everybody agreed to that. I don't remember if everybody agreed to that or not. If you did, then I guess I'll make the motion. And do I have a second on it? Because for number 3 here on the agenda, we need to have that. So okay, so
I'll second it.
Deputy Mayor Rigby, did you?
I don't know that we approved or adopted the budget policy, which was item number 4, but you're talking item number 3. What was your motion?
The motion was to change the year-end fund policy on the emergency reserves to 30% from 25 to 30 to be our goal. And so that's the motion.
Okay.
So do you want to vote on that? I have. Did you want to speak? No.
I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
If I might.
And that's for action item number 3.
That's actually action item number 3. So do you want to vote on that first, and then we'll take number 4? Councilmember Campbell?
Quick question for clarification. Was that over a specific period of time or just a general concept?
I think we said 5 years.
I think that's what I
should take it
recall,
5 years,
discussion
make
of
it 5 years? Yeah, okay. And then if we want to change it.
Clarify that.
Okay, that's clarified. That's included in the motion then.
And I accept that.
Okay, thank you. Please cast your votes on that. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. So then we'll take number 4. And Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Rigby, did you want to make the motion on number 4? Is that what you're?
Yes, ma'am. That's what my previous button was pushed for. So I would move that we adopt Council Resolution number 2016- to be filled in, adopting City Council Policy 100-18, the budget policy, as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Campbell, did you want to say?
Just a
okay. Then please cast your votes on that. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. And that takes us to our item on our agenda, D3, which is special event permits. Councilmember Campbell asked for this item to be on the agenda, so I'm going to ask him to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor. Previously, at the request of community members, specifically the Art Foundation, regarding the waiver of certain fees for events, the street permit fees for events that leave behind a lasting and positive benefit to the city and our community. I think we had a discussion specifically on that one particular organization, and comments that were made were that we're going down a slippery slope, that how do we choose which organizations, et cetera. So I wanted to bring this back for a broader general discussion on perhaps crafting a policy, which I know we can do because many, many other governmental organizations have policies for waiving fees for organizations that benefit the community and provide some value, monetary value back to the community. We just had the discussion regarding dedicating monies to public art. Since we didn't do that specifically for the downtown region, we put that aside for more durable art per se for capital improvement projects. I think how we can assist some organizations without direct monetary contribution is by creating a policy that enables an organization to come to the city, have clear outlined proposal of how their street festival event is going to provide economic benefit, direct monetary benefit to the city, that would enable city staff to have a checklist, so to speak, the city manager, to waive fees or have it come before the council for a fee waiver. You know, when we apply in partnership with developers for our affordable housing projects, for our grants, for our Paseo project, for park improvement projects, there's a scoring system that those agencies use to determine which projects are worthy of those monies. And I think we can accomplish that very simply here in the city of Vista. We have a few events that stand out to me that bring in a far greater benefit to the community than the cost that we charge these organizations, especially nonprofit organizations that are working hard. Every dollar matters to these organizations, and the money that they have to raise, in some cases $1,600, $1,100, $1,700, that's hard to raise that money for those organizations. You know, they're not getting $50,000 checks or $10,000 checks from donors in the community, but they're providing vibrancy to our downtown. They're providing great contributions in public art, events that are advertising the city in our downtown and helping our local businesses. That provides a lot more in some ways than the fees that we're charging them or could ever charge them to market the city, to market our downtown. So I want to create a policy that if it's a nonprofit organization that they're providing a long-lasting benefit to the city, especially like the public art, that can spur additional investment in those organizations. A lot of it has to, let's be honest, with the morale of an organization and the partnership that we as the city have with our local organizations, whether it's the Education Foundation, the Art Foundation, the Chamber of Commerce. That partnership means a lot more to me, and collaborative relationship means a lot more than $1,190.92. And if we as a city can't figure out a way to help those organizations with $1,200 by waiving a fee and the partnership that they're trying to create and the improvements, then we have a disconnect and a problem in our community, especially our priorities, I think, as a city and as a city council, to help those organizations thrive. I'm not talking about giving them $5,000 directly. That does become a slippery slope in terms of every organization and every nonprofit would come to us asking for money. But if they can show and demonstrate, which I think the last one did in particular, that they're providing a positive to the city, then by all means we should also partner with them to help improve our city. And the great volunteer and the countless hours that they're putting in, we should recognize that by partnering with them. And at the very least we can do is waive a street closure fee. I don't know if any of my council colleagues have anything they would like to add.
Councilor Franklin.
And I promise this is a relevant comment, but I noticed there were $61,000 additional dollars that were actually not included in the total. Is my math correct on that from the last item? Because the reason I ask is because I'd like to say that maybe at this time, since it was on the agenda tonight, we collected $11,939 in street closure fees, and based on my conversations with staff, some of that amount, I think we did make a stipend to the chamber for several of the events, so some of that money was ours before it came back to us. Is that accurate?
It's not part of these fees. We have a longstanding agreement with the Chamber of Commerce in particular to put on their Christmas parade, as well as assistance with the
So we reduced the
Strawberry
amount that we
Festival.
charge them? Is that it?
We give them for the Christmas parade, we give them an $8,500 stipend if I'm
What I'd like
not
to
correct.
suggest, if I'm correct about the $61,000, and somebody could sharpen their pencil right now and do that math, but that's what my calculator said.
So I did the math on the last item when you brought it up, and the numbers were transposed as Ms. Warham stated.
And I
did not
put
get
those
it-
into my
I
calculation.
did not get an additional $61,000.
Okay, well, I did. So what I'd like to say is, why don't we set aside $12,000 to be used at the discretion of, I don't know, the Public Safety Commission, or perhaps we could allot 25% to each of 4 commissions, that they could use this money towards the street closure of events. And we could take one-time money, if it's available, and we could put it to that purpose, and then perhaps in March, we could have a conversation about whether we want to include a permanent amount. But that's just one bizarre thought that I had that would maybe give us the ability, because I think the point has been made, and I agree with it, that all of these events really add value to our city, and they're all wonderful, and we've already endeavored to support some of them. And honestly, we've spent a lot of time talking about $12,000. It's a very small sum of money in the grand scheme of things. And while I'm always careful with every penny of the taxpayers' money, if we have the ability to do it, because we've subsidized some of these things in the past, perhaps that's something we want to consider using the one-time money for, if it's available. Now while I'm going to be silent here, I'm going to do my calculations again.
My only thing is, once you start down this road, it's kind of a slippery slope. So what about the Historical Society? They're not in this little part right here, or the so there's other, the Lions Club and different events that different community service organizations put on. Once you start with, these are just downtown events. They're not all of them, and so you can't, what you do for one person, you really need to do for everyone. So, and right now our budget's okay, but I'm not out to spend every cent that's left over in our budget tonight, but like right now our budget's okay. But I was here when we were having budgetary problems and issues when we had the recession, and so I don't like to take on additional things that would be ongoing. So I'll go to Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree that the list that's before us of the downtown events in 2015, like eight or nine events, those only represent a portion of the events that we do in the city. And I think it is a slippery slope. How do you determine who gets what type of a discount on these? And I agree that they bring in revenue, they bring in people to the city of Vista. If we continue to discount the services that the city uses, we reduce the revenue and the fees that come in that go into the operating budget for the city. And we have been working on our budget. We've been building our budget back up. We've been building our reserve fund back up. I'm not sure this is the time to start going the opposite direction. And I think in the case in point that brought this back up for Councilman Campbell was the Alley Art Festival in September. And that was the perfect example of what I've been talking about for 4 years, is a public-private partnership, in that the Alley Art Festival, or the Art Foundation, didn't have the money for that. A private company, a private person came out and provided the funding for that. seeing the value of the event. And that is another thing that we don't really talk a lot about, but we really should, is, and I believe I said it that night, is facilitating. It's one of the things that as a council and as a city we can do is facilitate and network those relationships. Because, and I sent a letter to Mr. Wentz, and I thanked him for stepping up and paying those fees on behalf of the Alley Art Festival. And I thought that was a stellar thing to do. And I would like to see us work more together as a community to do these things. And I'm a little hesitant to go down the road to start discounting fees at this point.
I see everybody wants to speak here, but I have two speakers. Do you want to hear the speakers first, or do we want to finish everyone talking?
I'd like.
Okay, Councilor Aguilera.
Just because I just want to echo what Deputy Mayor Rigby said. I mean, that's perfect. I agree with you. I'm looking at, these events that have been very successful, positive cash flow from these events. So I think our permitting fees and that are not hindering them from being a positive event. It's not stopping them from doing their events. And I agree that, once you start waiving for one, now you got to waive for the next. And we only have whatever, I think it's 9, right? 9 events. So suddenly when the next group wants to hold an event downtown, hey, we can close Downtown Vista because they do it for everybody else for free. And it's not this is part of that barrier to entry. It's going to cost us X amount of dollars, $1,200 or $2,300 to close down, Broadway and Indiana or whatever street they're closing down. So it is a barrier of entry. I mean, you're going to think twice before you, pay that fee. You're going to make sure you have vendors. You're going to make sure it's a successful event. So I think it's part of the business for them. And, I think, again, we have successful events. It's not hindering their success. And we do have bills that we have to pay. It may not seem like a lot here, but these are just these events. I could see where the Alta Vista Gardens would want a waiver of fees. The Lions Club, I belong to the Lions Club. We used to hold a yard sale or parking lot sale for the Lions, and we had to pay a fee to have that legally done on a parking lot. And once that event became less profitable and less volunteers, we got a second thought and said, you know what, this isn't worth it. We're barely breaking even on this thing after we pay the fees, and it really isn't that great it wasn't that great of an event. We just had to accept that and move on and do other events that were more successful. So I can't support this at this time.
Councilor Campbell, do you want to
Unless
talk,
I hear
or do you want me
something
to
from
take
the
speakers?
public.
I was going to ask you the speakers.
Yeah, we can hear the speakers.
Okay, speakers. Okay, so Cliff Kaiser.
Mayor, council members, when we talked about this before the Alley Art Festival, I made some points that I'll reiterate here today. This is not about simply discounting specific events. This is about taking public funds and investing it back into the community. So we're not talking about a precedent or a slippery slope, I would suggest. We're talking about what you do all the time. You invest in the Moonlight Amphitheater. You invest in the Wave Water Park. You've invested in the Chamber of Commerce. And when we created the Strawberry Festival several years ago, it was a fledgling event that barely got off. And what is it today? You can't say that you can only invest in successful events. Sometimes those beginning events need that little impetus to make them become successful down the road. And nobody today would ever think about giving up the Strawberry Festival from what it's become. And what the Arts Foundation was pleading is we're a fledgling event. We just need a little help. And I suppose that one way to mitigate giving away too much money would be to say, if your event makes a profit, we want that profit back until we get our fees back. And you have to have some measure in place to say, show us a P&L on that particular event to say, how well you did. Because we don't, if they make a profit, that's good. If they bring people into the area, that's good. And another point is this is not only about the downtown. This is about the city all over the place. You know, we give Mr. Wynn and his great organization money to put on the Easter egg hunt, or we give them a discount in the fees or the permits. And we ought to think about that for every single event that we run and every single event, every nonprofit that comes before here. And that's what your job is. Make the decision of how to best invest public funds to encourage the community and to bring people down here. Thank you so much.
Uribe Lopez.
Hello, thank you, Uribe Lopez. As most of you guys know, as a Parks and Recs Commissioner, we had a process, we still do, in which if an organization wants to be sponsored by the city, they have to go in front of the commission and they have to meet a standard. They have to be a 501c3. They have to cater to the people of Vista, and it can't be an organization that is doing something repeat. And there's some other standards. So what I think that what we could do here is have a similar process. So if you want to be part of this city-sanctioned list of events, you have to be a 501c3. You have to be something that caters specifically to the people of Vista. And if you do that, then it's not a slippery slope, because in order to qualify, you first have to be sponsored by the city. And talking about a public-private sponsorship is really what we're talking about here. Instead of the city spending its money and its resources and its liability on creating events, we can have other organizations try them out, and if they work, great. And if they don't, well, we'll give another city, another organization a try. So I think it's something that we're already doing. I don't think it's a lot of money. And to be honest, I think the people that did the Alley Art Festival did a great job. And I think they're a little bit hurt that the amount of work that they do for the city was not able to waive that fee. But the city is right in saying we can't waive just for one. But if you have a policy in which you have to apply, be a nonprofit, be particular to the city, having then, and the policy, of course, is going to be created by you guys. So that's my 2 cents on it. And one of the events that I've been pushing for since as a Parks and Rec Commissioner is a 4th of July parade. I think maybe the Chamber wants to do a 4th of July parade. That is something that would qualify under this new rubric, and they would not have to pay the fee. So that's something that I just wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you to the 2 speakers in the audience, Mr. Kaiser and Mr. Lopez, for your comments. I think it goes right in line with what I'm trying to say, Mr. Kaiser, that this isn't a waiver of fees so much as it is a reinvestment in our community. We've spent more time on this item than we have items that we just spent $2.1 million, or was it over $2 million, and we didn't even discuss it. We didn't even talk about it. But we spend a significant amount of time on something that isn't just about the money, but it's about the relationship between the city and those organizations and the community. It's about groups like the Vista Art Foundation. Sure, they were able to get a private donor to donate the money, but they came before us and said, hey, we want to partner with you. We want you guys to waive this fee that's an impediment to the great things that we're doing in Vista. So as a direct investment, we should have gone, yes, we're going to waive your fee because you're doing X, Y, and Z for the city. You're helping our community. I think creating a policy is what I mentioned earlier. Nonprofit, you're providing positive economic impact to the city. But I think the other thing is you have to have viability. Obviously, we don't want every single group that's a nonprofit being able to say, I want to close Main Street down. They have to go through the same process that every other organization does, which is outreach to the businesses, get their sign-off, have an estimated attendance over a certain number of folks, have a budget, have the resources to be able to put on a great event that helps grow the vitality and vibrancy of our downtown and the entire city. To me, this is common sense. It's a no-brainer. We're not talking about a specific set amount of money in my mind. We're talking about the reinvestment, creating a policy of reinvestment in our city, in our local organizations, in our nonprofits, and creating a culture of partnership between the city and those organizations. Mr. Franklin, you brought up a good point of the dollar amount, but I don't think this list necessarily is something, not every one of these events are, in my opinion, would qualify. Some of these, like the Barbecue Classic, the Strawberry Festival, those are events that are trying to make those organizations money as well. Maybe the Strawberry Festival, but it has to meet a certain set of criteria. And I think one speaker brought up about if you make a profit, then you can pay back some of those fees. Not every event is going to make a positive balance sheet at the end, but it's going to provide a positive benefit to the city. So if maybe we can craft a policy for events like the Strawberry Festival that we can waive the fee, but if it's profitable for the chamber, they're going to pay a portion of that fee back. If that's amenable to the council, that we can look at that. But on organizations like the LA Art Festival, where all that money is going right back into the community, to me, that's something to where we need to continue to waive those fees and partner with those groups. I know a lot of other cities do it. We haven't been very good about partnering with local organizations with fee waiving, because that's a tool that we have. I know it costs the city money, but the value of the services that we're getting back are worth far, far more than the limited amount of fee recovery that we're making. So I'm going to rest my case with that.
Councilmember Franklin.
My difficulty with waiving the Alley Art Fair fee was some of the, I think, very considerable slippery slope arguments. If we do it for them, then why not for the next group? That was troubling to me. But I want to address all the concerns that have been raised. First of all, I've made a proposal out of one-time monies, and I've done the math for the third time. There's $61,651 not accounted for in that number. And I know by now that some of the staff have done the math, and unless the correction to the transpositional error was wrong, there's $61,651 left to allocate. I would like to see us, on a one-time basis, recognizing that we had a good year, that there was a surplus, and that we set aside not just what we targeted, but more than what we targeted into our reserve fund, and congratulations to us for that. Because we had a good year and we've been fiscally prudent, I'd like to see us find a way to take $12,000 out of the one-time monies and set it aside for this purpose. That would eliminate the slippery slope. We don't have to do it again next year if we're not in a similarly good financial position. Also, by capping the total amount of funds available, we would necessarily limit the number of organizations that might benefit. And by giving some discretionary authority to our commissions, and I would, by the way, in my motion, direct the staff to choose the appropriate commission and to work with them to create an appropriate policy to govern the use of this money. Maybe there's more than one commission. Maybe the Parks and Rec Commission would have access to a third of it, and the Public Safety Commission would have access to a third of it, and so on. Whatever the staff comes up with is fine with me. Perhaps not all the money would be used. The point was made, not everyone would qualify. That's just fine. Any money not used at the end of the year could be rolled forward to the next fiscal year if we so choose. I have no problem with the if they're successful, they don't have to pay, but I think that's part of the boards and commissions. Once this money is spent, it's a one-time thing. Once it's spent, it's gone unless we want to renew it for the next year. Somebody said we're discounting the city services. This would, in fact, not be a discount. This would simply be a subsidy pool that we are making available, again, on a one-time limited basis. And I would want to remove the decision-making to our commissions and let them have autonomous authority to spend these funds as the staff and the city manager would direct and approve.
Councilmember Franklin, if I could clarify, right now special event permitting is administered through the Risk Management Office. It's governed by municipal code, and at this point
There is no specific commission that addresses basically this is the closure of public streets and the safety associated with it. So the commissions themselves, I'm not quite sure how that would work in such a policy.
Well, let me explain, because it's very simple. The city would continue, as it has, to assign the cost, and they would present the event sponsor with the cost that they must pay. The commissions, if there's any ideas from my council colleagues about which commission, I've named a few, but the commissions could tap into these funds, the $12,000 one-time money, and they could make that subsidy available at their discretion to the Alley Art Festival, to the Chamber, for a July 4th. This is a one-time thing, not an every-year thing. We could discuss it again if there's a desire on the council's part to discuss it when we get into our regular general fund budget. But that's my proposal, that we would set that aside. That money might just stick around for 2 or 3 years to come, and we might be able to use it. But by setting a limited amount of money aside, we abate the concern about this being a slippery slope, and we staff can certainly set up some decent guidelines, 501c3, 501c6, like the Chamber, and it serves the interest of the city. And if a commission that meets in the name of the City Council wants to make that decision, then they, in such a form as the staff shall devise, would have the ability to expend up to those $12,000. I think this is a great way to serve what I'm convinced by what Councilmember Campbell has said. This is an investment, and I think others said it. I think Mr. Kaiser said it. This is an investment in partnerships. We have already spent money out of the city coffers to reduce or partner with some of these fees, as has been related to me by staff. And so I'm making a motion for $12,000 one-time money wherever this is to be used in the manner in which I elaborated in such great detail.
Councilor Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to address a couple things that were said by speakers and fellow council members. So one of the things that was stated, I think Mr. Kaiser and I have had this conversation before. He stated that we do give subsidies to X, Y, and Z events and that type of thing, which is true, which really supports the fact that we already make the decision to support. So, I think we already are supporting. I mean, we just discussed Moonlight. That's something that we have a heavy subsidy on. Mr. Kaiser pointed out the Wave Water Park, which is really more a park place. But I mean, we do subsidize a lot of events. We're already making those decisions. And Mr. Wynn is here, Santa / the Easter Bunny. But we really appreciate what you've done with the Easter event, because that was a city event that was, I think that was 2010 or something.
For a lot of years, I don't remember.
Yeah, we went ahead and eliminated that event because we didn't have the monies because of the recession and that. Mr. Wynn stepped up and said he'd do it as long as we could waive the fees. That was already a city event, so there was, it was not a private event in that respect. But going back to, these rules of, okay, it's got to be 501c, got to benefit the city of Vista. There's no question that all these events somehow benefit the city of Vista, and I'm relatively certain that most of them have some sort of a 501c of some sort working for their financially. But if we one of the things we talked about is if they're a profitable event, well, that just doesn't make business sense to me, so we're going to subsidize the bad events. These are good events. What I'm talking about, my concern is we're going to start getting bad events that can't be, profitable down the road, and we're going to be subsidizing those. And, people, I tell you, I get approached, I'm not going to say every day, but every once in a while I do get approached by nonprofit organizations. They tell me a great story, And I talked to city staff, and I feel really terrible when I have to go back to them and say, you know what, if we do it for you, we've got to do it for the next, and some of these organizations are really doing some great things for our people here in Vista and our 501Cs. But we have to say no at some point. And I just feel like the fact that these are very public events, it's only going to make it worse when, whether it's a Little League or Pop Warner, or it's a women's group that's going to have an event here at the Morris Vance Community Center and talk about abuse and those types of things that I'd love for the city to be able to support. But as soon as you support that one, then there's the next one, and then there's the next event. And that's all I'm concerned with. And I appreciate the fact that you kind of looked at this as a one-time thing. And I thought about that, and I really did consider that as like, okay, I might be able to jump on board. But I think we're still doing the same thing, because next year I have a feeling that some of these events won't budget for fees and that type of thing, and they'll be expecting it, and we may not have the money. It may not be next year, but it might be the following year, and we're going to have some problems. So I think I'm happy with the way we're doing the permitting fees currently.
I'm going to second the motion.
I don't have any more speakers. So
Okay.
Are you ready to vote on it?
Let's vote.
Okay. Do you want to restate the motion, or is it?
Sure, I'll attempt to restate. So this would be a use of one-time monies only in the amount of $12,000 to create a fund subject to such rules should be approved by the city manager. And why don't we say this, if Councilmember Campbell's amenable, that the request should initiate from any of our duly created boards or commissions, and shall be recommended to the City Council, and the City Council shall take the approving action. Would you be amenable to that change?
I think that's a fair solution to the issue. Absolutely.
So that's the motion.
Okay, cast your votes, please. That motion fails by 3-2. Okay, moving on to the next issue, which is D4, red light photo enforcement program, and Councilmember Franklin asked for this to be on the agenda, so I will let him introduce the motion.
So I wanted to bring this issue back. I have heard from numerous voters and residents of the city of Vista about our red light camera program. And I'm not going to make a lengthy argument, but I am going to hit the broad strokes here. In 2014, we issued $4,028,454 in citations, and I believe we collected about $2.8 million in gross receipts. I believe that's from the city's records. The ticket is $486. 76 California cities have removed red light cameras from their jurisdictions. The average income of a Vista resident is approximately $50,000. $486 as a percentage of the average resident's net income is more than 1% of their take-home. It is an egregiously high amount. It imposes an unjust penalty on the more than 50% of those fined who are simply making an illegal right turn on red without a full, complete stop. A significant portion of my argument against our program has to do with the fact that the punishment does not fit the crime. That, and even studies that are used by proponents of cameras to suggest that they reduce the number of angular collisions, even those studies demonstrate that red light cameras are proven to increase the number of rear-end collisions by, in some counts, as much as 40%. I have personally spoken to at least 4 residents who were rear-ended while they were waiting at a red light, or while they came to a stop, and felt that the red light cameras were partially to blame. I have not heard from one citizen, as I have taken this subject matter up as sort of a quest I have not heard from one citizen who's approached me and said, please, please don't take the cameras down. In fact, I won't even add the extra please. Not even one person has asked me without please to keep the cameras. However, I have heard from numerous citizens that have asked that we do away with the cameras. Again, more than half of the tickets are right turn on red. And I could go on at length about this. I think that this is something the voters really care about. No matter what your school of economics, $2.8 million per year taken out of our local economy, money that's spent by people who are either residents of our city or who are transiting through our city, would likely spend that money in our city. And I think we have to look at the multiplier effect, and whether you believe it's a 3 or a 6 multiplier effect as the Federal Reserve Bank uses, I think you have to look at the significant number of at least more than $10 million a year removed from our local economy and sent to Sacramento. And those are the reasons that I support eliminating the red light cameras. For those reasons and more, I would make a motion. Oh, and a procedural thing, we are under contract for another, 2 to 3 years. And I made an inquiry of our city manager, and he confirmed, and I told him I was going to use these exact statements from him. He confirmed that if we send a letter to Redflex instructing them that we would like to exercise our termination clause in our contract, we owe 0 financial penalty to the Redflex company. That was what I was told, and I have it in writing. So hopefully the facts haven't changed. We would, of course, not continue to enjoy the de minimis net revenue that we receive from the program. And in further conversation with staff, realizing there are some administrative headaches in eliminating the program, I agreed to offer this motion effective as of the 31st of December 2016 to give staff the time to bring the program to a proper closure. So again, my motion is to instruct the city manager to immediately transmit to the Redflex Corporation notice of our intent to cancel our contract under the rights contained within the current contract effective December 31st, 2016. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As it's public record, we've had this discussion twice before in the last 4 years. I have always been opposed to the red light cameras in Vista, and so I will second Councilman Franklin's motion to eliminate the red light cameras effective December 31st.
And I have 4 speakers, but do Councilmember Campbell, and then we'll go to
Let's
them.
hear from the speakers first, if we could.
Okay, I have from Dale Pilot.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. I've been talking about this for the past few years now, and there was a study done by the University of Chicago on December 31st, 2014 that stated that it actually causes more injury accidents than it prevents. With that, and also the Department of Transportation doing another study in 2005 showing the same results, anywhere from 22 to 26% increase in the injury accidents, knowing that we only receive about $158 per ticket that is written out of that $478. I consider that a lose-lose situation for everybody, especially the people that live here in Vista and those who decide that they want to come and spend money here or just visit family or friends. So with that, I would like to encourage everybody up there to cancel the contract and get rid of the red light cameras immediately, or as John Flanken would say, by December 31st, we would cancel that contract. I think it would be better for the people and better for our city, knowing that we actually care about the people and we don't want to see them hurt any longer, and that money can actually be saved and used for commerce here in Vista. Thank you.
Tom Fleming.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I have been a Vista resident for over 40 years. I spoke out against this from the start also, and I encourage you to to accept this motion, to pass it, and I would love to see it be unanimous. These lights have done nothing but create stalls in traffic. Those lights go off, they start flashing, everybody starts reacting. It impedes the flow of traffic. I just would encourage you to all work together, and let's get this thing overturned finally. Thank you.
J.C. Wynn.
Good day. Good evening, Council. I wrote a little statement because some of you already know that I'm currently going through a situation with my wife who's just endured her second neck and spine operation as a result of being rear-ended at a red light camera, albeit it wasn't here in Vista. It was at the intersection of Oceanside Boulevard and College when Oceanside had their cameras done. I'm kind of torn because I kind of think that maybe red light cameras could help people slow down and, realize we got cameras, so let's not run the cameras. But I think you get the same effect by just parking a police car, at an empty police car at an intersection, and people pay attention whenever you see a police car. But you can make a survey and say they're safe if you want it to be so. Anybody can do a survey. But does that really make them safe? And when you get rear-ended so hard that your car is totaled, maybe you're not getting T-boned, but you're getting wrecked the other way. So whether we keep them or not, the question is, are we really reducing all accidents, or are we just creating a different kind of accident? That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Uribe Lopez.
Thank you, Council. It's Rube Lopez again, and I'm here to also say that we should get rid of the red light cameras. Councilman Franklin said that the average salary of a person in Vista is $54,000, and that a ticket is 1%. But I talked to a lot of people whose yearly salary is maybe $24,000, and so a ticket really, really hurts them. In addition, I guess talking a little bit about politics, we've been walking the streets. Dale has been doing it. I have been doing it. Mr. Fleming has been doing it. And it's a pretty unanimous feeling that people of Vista really, truly hate those cameras. Thank you.
Terry Collins.
Hi, Terry Collins. I also would ask that you remove the red light cameras. I just wanted to say that in January of 2016 and April 2014, I appreciate Councilmember Franklin and Rigby voting to remove the cameras. And one thing that's true about visitors is when they come off the freeway to head Melrose South, Hacienda is right there, it's just a very short amount of time. And the visitors who are not used to Vista don't realize there's an intersection right there. So that's one reason why visitors do get red light tickets a lot here in Vista. It's a shock, and that's where accidents can happen. Redflex continues to be in the news daily, even this month. And Redflex is not a company in the United States. It may have an office in Arizona, but the profits from Redflex goes to Australia. It's not even going to a United States company. Just this September, Redflex has been found to be giving executives lavish compensation packages, and the Department of Justice is now investigating the firm, and that was recently in the news in September. And an article written just this month, there's security concerns that, and I'm not saying this could happen in Vista, but that the city's internet could be hacked, and our information can get out from red light camera tickets. That was an article this month. In July of this year, Tennessee attorneys general found it that the Redflex was looking at the tickets before they were forwarded on for police review. and the Florida Court of Appeal said that that was illegal. So I don't know if that's happening here, that Redflex is reviewing that information before it goes on for a police officer for them to review. But that's something that Florida's looked at and says that's incorrect. It shouldn't happen. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, a 1 second increase in a yellow light time results in 40% decrease in severe red light crashes. And I know that this has been said before. If we lengthen the yellow light time, traffic citations also are dropped by 90%. And if we use that all stop on red, that could also decrease accidents. So Oceanside stopped their red light cameras in 2014. San Diego, El Cajon, Poway, and Escondido have removed their red light cameras. Del Mar and Encinitas are currently contemplating removing their red light cameras. Let's not be the last city to make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been an evolving issue over the last 4 years, but I do have a couple of questions from staff, if we have staff available from engineering, traffic.
What are your questions?
Question is regarding our current yellow light timings. I know we've had this discussion before. The last time this was before the council, it was not a vote to continue the red light cameras. It was a vote to allow the city manager to utilize his discretion to whether or not to continue the use of the cameras. I just want to clarify that. We've had, not to staff, but to the community, is that I've received feedback saying some inaccurate statements about my prior position and vote on red light cameras, specifically regarding voting to continue them, but it was a vote to allow the city manager to exercise his discretion. So that is an important clarification to make. But I did have a question about the yellow timing. Back in, let's just choose the year 2003 or so, compared to today, we have expanded the length of time that we have the yellow caution set for. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's 2 stages actually that the yellow time was increased. There was at some point after 2003, maybe 2006 or 7, that the yellow light or yellow timing was increased to above standard, and then the state Caltrans modified the standard to make it even longer and to go into effect August 2015, which we complied with also back in June or July 2015. So there was another increase.
Right.
And we always also had the all red, 1 second of all red. We have that at all the city's intersections.
So I've done a little bit of research on not just specifically the red light camera, but intersection safety, because that's always been my biggest concern. You know, I've mentioned that over the last 4 years that I've been here. Is my concern isn't about creating revenue for the city with red light cameras. That's the last thing I want to be doing. I do think that the red light citations for the average Viston are very significant and are too high. And I think, as I mentioned years ago, sometimes there should be ways to have citations for violations, especially traffic violations, be commensurate with the ability to pay. That's not something we have the ability to set here at the local level. That's a Sacramento issue. But what would happen if we increased our current yellow timings at the major intersections another second in terms of traffic flow and increased the all red stop to 2 seconds? Would that create a significant impediment to traffic flow, or would its benefit of safety in terms of reducing accidents outweigh those minor, potentially insignificant traffic flow issues? What is it's kind of a personal opinion question, I guess, at this point.
Before you answer, I just, for the public's benefit, with us up here is our city engineer, Greg Mayer, and answering the questions right now is our traffic engineer, Sam Hassanen. Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you.
So, maybe I'll answer that based on engineering judgment and what I've seen at signalized intersections. And I believe that especially the current standard that we complied with last year, I believe is adequate to give notice to drivers to stop give them the warning of an impending red light, as well as, the 1 second of all red. It gives, quite a bit. We're talking about the range of 4 to 6 seconds between, actually more, maybe 5 to 6 or 7 seconds between the yellow plus the all red. So it's pretty long, periods. And then anything we add into the yellow and all red comes out of the green, basically, especially in the heavy times where we have what we call coordination, where the cycle lengths are fixed. So all of that will just come out of the green. So it's kind of just, borrowing from the green, where people maybe start running into the, yellow longer. And people do, the regular commuter gets trained, and they kind of learn how long the yellows and all reds are. So I don't believe it will be a benefit.
Okay. I know at some of our intersections, especially the one that we've had, I would say it's probably our worst intersection in town, which is where we have some of these cameras at, the intersection of Santa Fe, South Santa Fe, North Santa Fe, Vista Village, and then Olive. We've made a commitment as part of our traffic management plan to install new controllers to make that intersection far more efficient. As we know now, it's very inefficient and has a lot of problems, so I'm glad we're moving that forward. My concern is, in the past, especially before we made the improvements to South Santa Fe with our new Paseo project, is that we had far more red light runners on Santa Fe and Vista Village than we do currently. The speed of traffic was much higher. Now, I think with our traffic management plan and the traffic flow patterns that we've adjusted, the potential for that at that intersection is lower than it previously was, especially coming north on South Santa Fe into Vista Village. And that's created a more pedestrian-friendly corridor. I know it seems a little bit off topic maybe of the red light cameras, but it goes into what I've talked about before, which is intersection safety. And I think we have a ways to go on intersection safety in Vista, especially our key intersections, such as that one at Vista Village in Santa Fe, such as even ones like Foothill and East Vista Way, where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. We've had several fatalities, although they were crossing the street prior to the intersection. But part of what I think we need to incorporate is a comprehensive, holistic approach to pedestrian intersection safety. I know we've talked previously about some improvements that could be made for creating better pedestrian crossings in our downtown area, which may have some impact on traffic flow, but in the grand scheme of what we're trying to accomplish of bringing families downtown would accomplish that. Our other intersections, we've made improvements. The one on south of the 78 on Sycamore, where we have some of the cameras, we installed the additional left turn lanes, which I believe allows additional traffic flow on that left turn onto Sycamore, which I think has reduced the need for people to feel that they need to try to run the light to get through when it was just one lane previously. That's been a great improvement. So I want to give you specifically credit for a lot of these great improvements in the traffic flow that we've seen in the city that have resulted in greater safety improvements throughout the city at those intersections. And I think when the council years ago installed the red light cameras, it was ultimately at the end of the day to provide for better safety services, public safety throughout the city. We have limited law enforcement resources throughout the city. So removing cameras at those intersections at the time that I believe were less safe than they are today would have resulted in more law enforcement being needed for traffic enforcement. So the next question, maybe the city manager could answer this, is in terms of law enforcement within the city, what's the number compared to, say, San Marcos, the number of traffic deputies that we have? Do you happen to know? Or does the sheriff?
I don't know it offhand. I don't know if Captain Cinemo. I'll have him come up and answer that.
Can I ask a technical question? Would you mind? Just very brief. The lenses that dictate how far away I can see the signal, you know what I'm talking about? So I have a concern that some of our intersections, and as I was doing my research for tonight's topic, I read about the distance that the red light is visible from. Some of our intersections, I feel that those lenses are not correctly aimed, and in some cases prevent me from seeing the color of the lights until I'm too close to the light. You don't have to provide significant comment on that, but I do wonder if it's something we've looked at, and I hope it's something that we're continually reevaluating the distance from which the signal is visible. I think that's really important.
Just right quick, if I can answer that, or tell you, I think I know a couple of those that you're talking about. One of them, is it on North Melrose by any chance? Because we have where the two lights are very, very close
Yes.
together. That's to, I know some of those are to avoid confusion of drivers seeing one's green, one's red, and you have to be in the queue of that particular intersection. But there are a couple that may need upgrade to the newer LED technology to address that in the city.
If I may address that just briefly, we have very limited use of these, what we call limited visibility or programmed visibility signal indications, just because my personal preference on it is to have the specially red indication visible as far as possible, but sometimes we do need them, like North Melrose, Highland, Los Angeles, where they're so close that you don't want the driver to be confused by the upstream signal. We have them in Emerald, West Vista Way, but we do continue to look at them. They are difficult to program, actually, because you kind of have to drive it and kind of put yourself in the seat of the shoes of the driver, I guess. So, but we do. They're very limited locations. If there are any that you see out there that you would like us to look at, please let me know.
So, Captain.
Okay. Having worked traffic in both cities, both Vista and San Marcos, traffic number of units is pretty comparable. Unfortunately for us, traffic is a huge issue all across North County, and we've run into that problem both here in Vista and in San Marcos in terms of that being typically the chief complaint from the public in general. Traffic and traffic safety related issues. So they are pretty comparable in numbers. But if we really wanted to drill down into it and get, hey, what does that look like in terms of collision numbers and all that, we'd have to do some extra research.
What is the number of traffic units in Vista?
Currently, we have 5 traffic deputies assigned and then 3 motors that go on top of that.
And then, so that number is comparable in our surrounding cities as well then?
Meaning San Marcos has approximately...
Yeah, with San Marcos, it's pretty comparable. If we were to go outside of that, it would change things if we were to go to Oceanside or Carlsbad.
Right, their populations are very different as well. So I'm going to put you on the spot maybe just a little bit in terms of personal opinion or expert opinion, as you may. In your opinion, the amount of resources that would be required to enforce at the intersections where we have the red light cameras for those more serious infractions, would that be a significant drain on your traffic resources, or is that something that you feel, based on the current number of deputies that we currently have, you'd be able to effectively manage essentially like you do at every other intersection in the city?
Yeah, I would say that we would definitely have to add staff in order to address that problem. Again, the one positive the cameras give us is 24/7 coverage for that. And while not every collision happens during the busiest traffic times, we've had some actual fatal collisions at some of these intersections in the middle of the night. We would have to add staff to actually deal with that. Otherwise, there would be protracted enforcement time between when we would visit one intersection and another.
I know that a couple of incidences occurred actually fairly recently where the cameras were able to capture a red light runner speeding, and there was a fatality, I believe, involved in that accident, that it caught how that accident occurred, and we were able to actually apprehend the suspect in that particular incident.
That's correct. And it actually made things a lot easier. While we could have still proven what occurred in that collision, it was much easier to demonstrate it and actually show, hey, this is the actual chain of events that occurred. It also helped with identification of the driver.
Now, do we have other means available to make that outside of red light camera enforcement, other technology and other traffic cameras that would be able to go back and look and see what happened for an accident like that? Continuous key intersection monitoring. I know we have systems in place for monitoring traffic flow throughout the city and visually making some adjustments as needed. Is that something that we have the ability to go back and look at when a major accident like that occurs?
I'll defer to Sam, but for the most part, those cameras are used solely for that, and there's a lot of privacy issues that become at odds for folks if we do that. But I'll let Sam.
That might be a city attorney question.
Yeah, so data retention is one of the issues actually we've talked about in the past. There's certain requirements if we record that we would have to retain the data. Besides those cameras that we have for surveillance are what we call pan, tilt, zoom. So we move them around, which position do we leave them in, who's watching them. So, it's a lot of implications that come in if we start recording.
For clarification, the cameras we do have throughout the city do not record. Therefore, the traffic engineer to go into the room and understand what's happening in real time at those intersections.
What I'm trying to do is balance and make both sides of the issue known to the public, that there are positives, there are negatives. As Councilmember Franklin very clearly articulated a couple of items ago, we have a serious need currently for additional law enforcement in the city, in public safety. And as the captain stated, he feels, I'm going to paraphrase, that taking away the cameras would basically create a need for additional resources. Is that a fair?
That's a fair
fair
encapsulation.
Hate to put you on the spot like that, but that's kind of weighing both sides of the issue. I don't think anyone likes red light cameras. I know I certainly don't. I've gotten all sorts of, not to get political, but all sorts of negative feedback from people misstating what I've said, which I don't. I know in political times we get unnecessarily heated at times, but I've always tried to be a very statistics, factual-oriented council member. I think you can see that by some of the voting pattern here tonight on various issues. I think that what I have to look at is balancing the need for public safety, balancing the community's will for these things are awful, which I personally think they are too, and looking at what was our original intent for the red light cameras, and have we accomplished that goal? Have we made safety improvements to intersections in the city? I would say we have. I think if you look at the traffic flow patterns and the major accidents that we see today, I think we have far fewer major accidents in the city of Vista today than I've seen in the past. I know going back to 2002, 2003, 2004, it was not an uncommon occurrence to see a mangled vehicle collision at either on Sycamore, at Santa Fe and Vista Village, or Hacienda Melrose. You would frequently come across a delay in the fire engines there, and you've got a car spread out all over the place, and whether that was a fatality or a serious injury, it really doesn't matter. That's not what we want. But I think with intersection timings, with the traffic improvements that we've done on Santa Fe, with the lane increases that we've done, we've made additional safety improvements that mitigate a lot of the need for red light camera enforcement. I know our sheriff's department, I'm going to digress just a tiny bit on public safety. You guys do a great job. You may have the same number of deputies in the city, but the amount of work and the resources that you're able to put towards crime and traffic in the city today, because of the new technology, because of the training, because of the deputies' experience, it's like you've increased the number of deputies in the city, I think. I look at it as with the crime rate being at such a low level in the city, the amount of traffic deputies that are in our street compared to some other cities that I've talked to specifically, you guys are doing a great job. I hate to detract from that mission of addressing our crime rate in the city that you guys are currently focusing on, but it sounds like I have a willing colleague on the council who'd be willing to address potentially some of the takeaway and add additional resources to our law enforcement long-term in the city. So I think that's something that we can address going forward. I don't want to take resources away from other goals that we have within the city, but ultimately, as a council member, our job is twofold. It's to serve our community, and it's to implement the laws and the Constitution of the state of California. I look at those as our two goals as council members. And the community, when those cameras were put in, realized that we had a serious and significant safety issue within our city and wanted mechanisms to address that. As the years have gone by, the need has been reduced. It's not a revenue issue. It should have never been a revenue issue for the city, and I don't think it was. I know, Mayor, you were on the council at the time, and I don't think you would disagree with that statement, that it was a safety issue. But I want to continue to address some of the safety concerns that we have at those intersections. I want to ensure that we are able to improve the traffic flow, the safety of those key intersections, which I know we're working on with our traffic management plan. And I think at this time, I'm not changing my opinion of the cameras. I've always said that they're sort of the evil necessity of the city, that they were there for public safety, not for anything else. So to wrap up, I think at this time, I know, Councilman Franklin, you put this back on the agenda. It's been brought up in the past. I don't think we're at that point. Paseo wasn't completed, which I know was one of the big issues with traffic flow from South Santa Fe going north, which I was concerned about. We made some additional improvements. We've allocated more funding to the traffic management plan. So at this time, I do have a question of staff, one final question, which is removal at December 31st. I know the city manager and I spoke. How long does that realistically take to conclude and wind down all pending citations?
I mean, the contract calls for 15 days. I don't think that's adequate to truly wind down. 3 months would probably be a better figure. We do have some citations that go on for a while in terms of notification and processing, but if the council goes in that direction, is inclined, 3 months would be a good time frame.
So December 31st might be cutting it just a little short, but I know it looks like the city attorney wants to make a comment.
Well, realistically, we have to finish processing the flow of citations through the court, but typically those court dates are within 30 days plus continuances, so I suspect you would have resolved most of them by the end of the year. If you stopped the cameras from actually processing any further events, we'd have to figure out what that timing really needs to be.
Would staff, with the current motion on the floor, would staff have sufficient direction of how to proceed with the wind down process?
I think if it would allay your concerns, I would certainly be willing to add an additional 30 days and make the date January 31st, 2017.
Okay. And that was my concern, was cutting it a little short in terms of processing the pending cases. So not to beat a dead horse, there's pros, there's cons. It's at what point do the cons exceed the pros in this sort of case? And I think over the last 3 years, we've made significant strides to reach that point. We're going to have to come back and address the staffing issues, and I think we were already going to have that discussion, but we're going to need additional law enforcement in the city. There are some revenue concerns. I don't want to go on, but I'm going to turn it over to whoever Mayor can.
Councilmember Franklin.
I don't have any additional comments at this moment.
Councilor Aguilera.
Well, I guess my question is, why now? I think I know the answer, but we got an election in just less than a month. So, I mean, we just discussed this in January 26th, so things shouldn't have changed in that short period of time. Paseo Santa Fe has been there for a couple years now, at least we knew what was going on there. Nobody likes red light cameras, including myself. nobody likes the lights and sirens behind them. You know, I mean, that's just not, none of us like that. I've had a red light camera ticket in my past down in San Diego, and I was an unhappy camper, I'll tell you that right now. And I thought it was unfair and all those things, but when you go and take a look at that picture or that video, you're like, man, I really messed up, you know. And there's a lot of things I don't agree with on these red light cameras, personally, but I do have to look at what my responsibility is here as a council member. We've been talking so much, even just this evening, about safety and taking care of our citizens and that. And just like with my kids, you know, there's a lot of things I have to do to stop them from hurting themselves that they don't like, and even I don't like. But that's what I'm there for. And not that we're the parents of our citizens, but we are entrusted with their safety. And when I look at the statistics that we have cut accidents down by close to 50% in these intersections, specifically in these intersections where the red light cameras are at, I have to look at it and say, you know what, whether I like it or not, it works. And you know, in regards to the financial part of it and that, you know, I know the previous council that instated the red light cameras, I know it wasn't doing it for financial reasons because we make $50,000. Although $50,000 is a significant sum of money, but it's certainly not going to, as we've discussed this evening, not going to break the bank for us either. I think it's always been strictly a safety issue. Other cities, and some of the cities that were mentioned earlier, you know, they had many cameras. The city of San Diego is one of those. You know, everybody wanted to have a camera in their district so they could make money, you know, because it was a moneymaker or whatever they thought. Or, hey, they've got one in their district, I want one too. And what they found out is that they were actually losing money in some of those districts and some of those other cities that had removed them recently. So it was a financial burden to actually have them. And so there was obviously a reason for them to look at those cameras and possibly remove them. But I think the city, when they installed these cameras, they looked at the problem intersections, and the intersections that we're discussing this evening, we can all agree are major problems. You know, Santa Fe, Vista Village, Sycamore, the Emerald intersection. In fact, I just saw a video of somebody that ran I just couldn't believe how blatantly they ran, and it was in the evening too. But I mean, accidents, the fatality we had, it was a red light that was run in the middle of the night, and someone died because of that. So I think about that, and so I set aside my personal desires and look at what we're trying to accomplish with these cameras. And for that reason, you know, I don't understand why we're even talking about it, because we've just discussed this just several months ago. So I think there's other things that are going on here. I don't want to get into that part of it, but I don't want to be part of that, you know, the political side of it. The one issue that I skipped over the point I wanted to make is that traffic is an issue here in the city of Vista. It's one of our priorities as a council, something that we all are working together to fix. I think the red light cameras play a role in that, primarily in the safety area. But the other part of this is when we talk about traffic, most of our traffic, or I should say a lot of our traffic, comes from out of town. And they're not coming here to necessarily spend money in our stores. They're coming here to go to work. Some of them are working in our business park. Some of them are working in Carlsbad's business park. And they are trying to get somewhere very quickly. And I see it in the mornings when I go to work, when my family goes to work. You know, we see that people are trying to get through town very, very quickly. And their goal is to get from Temecula to Carlsbad or Temecula to Vista Business Park. And so, and I do feel for those people that are from out of town and get red light cameras tickets because they weren't aware of the red light camera. But hopefully they will drive safer in the future when they come through our city, and I think that's really the point. So with that, I will stop.
And actually, you made a lot of the points I was going to make. I agree with Councilmember Aguilera, but public safety has always been most important to me, and that includes, those running the red lights. And 24/7, we have somebody watching, the red lights right now, which we won't have in the future. And one of the reasons I think things are better is because we have the red light cameras just at those 5 intersections, and those are the dangerous ones. That's the only place that we put them. And so I can count to 3, so I know where we're going on this, but I don't know why it's back again either. I guess I do know why, but anyway, I will call on Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to conclude, we did discuss this earlier this year. During the interim, I will say I did take to heart a lot of the comments that members of the community made. I did a little bit more research that we didn't have at that time. New studies came out, new information from cities like the city of San Francisco that showed that, in general, the number of serious collisions had been reduced among all the intersections, not just the ones that had red light cameras affixed to them. And I think we've seen that decrease across the city ourselves over the past several years as major traffic accidents in intersections for red light running are down. And I think part of the reason to that is due to the increased timings, the increased yellow timings, and the work that our staff has done to create the all stop for the 1 second at those intersections. So that's the reason for that. It's not like something magically occurred and traffic accidents are down. It's due to the hard work of our staff in the city. Some people are going to say this is very political. It's because of an election, but those that know me know I've never been one to back down from an issue. I've been on the receiving end of a lot of 4-1 votes on this council, and if this is a politicized issue, I would have no qualms with voting to keep them. You could put me on the record as being the person who's always voted my conscience and voted to do what I thought's right for the city of Vista. And that's what I'm going to do here tonight. I think while it may be interesting timing of how this came back on the agenda for an October 11th meeting with an election upcoming, which does have some question marks, I think at the end of the day, the issue is the same and the facts are the same. And as I said months ago, and when I voted on this issue to keep them previously, if the facts and the evidence support removal when that time comes and it comes back, I'll vote to do that. I'd be more comfortable with having some more safety improvements and traffic enhancement improvements made first. But the issues before us tonight, we're working on those issues already. So I'm ready to call for the question if the mayor is.
Okay, just one thing we didn't add is now we'll have to close the storefront, undoubtedly in the Sinopolis Center, which means another empty storefront in there. So call for the question, I guess. The sheriff's storefront that's in the Sinopolis Center, that's what it's basically, we have a presence there, a sheriff presence there, but that's what they do is they do the tickets and go through everything there. So that will be closing, I'm sure, with this. So,
if I might add a follow-up comment to that, I don't think that storefront is generally open for the public. I've been by there many, many times. I've been by and actually had a tour of that facility. It's a small back room where there's one person who processes and looks at the tickets. It's not really a community storefront for the community to go in and ask questions about law enforcement in the community. And I think if we had that would be a different story to talk about. But hopefully it creates new opportunity for retail.
Has everybody voted? Okay, that motion passes. So the next thing on our agenda, we have our oral speakers, oral communications, and we have Dan Carlin.
I think we should start. I'm Dan Carlin. I live at 516 Blackbird. If we have a surplus, I'd like to see us start to looking at buying some parkland. It's a one-time fee. You know, we got to buy this stuff. Once it's gone, we don't have any more opportunities. I know that a lot of set-aside money. We are developing apartments, and any development, every unit, there's so much money set aside for parks, and I really think we got to start buying it. We could do it in some problem areas, maybe over by the Stater Brothers, where they had that fire. They always have the parties. Hey, let's turn that into a public meeting place instead of a private meeting place where someone's collecting rent on having nuisance parties. Great idea, We could just leave it like that. We'll figure out the path. That's where we'll have our sidewalks, have another dog park. It wouldn't take that much, but we need the land. And I'd really like us. I don't think we have any plan to buy the land. Everyone that I've asked at the city, I don't think we have any plans for that right now. And we really need to start looking to buy parkland because there's not going to be any more of it made. And once it gets built out, then my neighbor is going to be that person that's going to take advantage of a public space. She'll rent her backyard out. So let's buy us some land.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I might add, just for Mr. Carlin's benefit, earlier in the quarterly report, the council did set aside $2.1 million to buy vacant land to turn into parkland.
Okay, I just need the plan. I need us to start doing it. I really appreciate that.
Thomas Kraus.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For full disclosure, although I may have met most of you over the last couple of years, I am one of your two candidates for State Assembly in District 76 this November. And I came to speak against Measure A, which is a San Diego County measure also on the ballot next month. I believe it represents an undue burden on Vista's quality of life, its traffic, and potentially a negative fiscal impact. And I came to just encourage you, to the extent that you can, either as individuals or as a body, to raise public awareness and perhaps take a position against Measure B. For the public's education, Measure B is an attempt to rezone part of Valley Center to handle 1,700 homes for an area that's currently zoned for 110 and 90,000 square feet of commercial space where there's none, miles away from current schools and from current job centers, in a process that evades the county's standard planning practice processes and amends the county growth plan to fit the design of Measure B, which is over 600 pages, which would be entered directly into the county code, and which typically voters are not capable of taking the time to evaluate the full impacts. In fact, this Measure B is called by a mayor of a Southern California town the Citizens Initiative loophole scam. And one of the things I would like to do in Sacramento is to close that loophole. The specific impact arises from approximately 19,000 daily car trips estimated to arise from this plan if it were to be passed and built out. That would directly impact the Gopher Canyon Road East Vista Way corridor, which I understand from personal experience is already pretty darn jammed, as well as an alternate Deer Springs, Buena Creek Road, Monte Vista Drive, South Santa Fe Avenue corridor. There's been a lot of misinformation in the campaign. I don't have time to go into it. But what I will say is that it's estimated that this plan will leave $1 billion of unfunded infrastructure costs, either to be picked up by the county or neighboring cities, which would be Vista, obviously. It's only 15 miles from this point to the center of the planned development. San Diego Union Tribune rated a similar project in Carlsbad as being good, and that project was voted down by Carlsbad voters in a special election in February by 52% to 48%. And the UT in the same article rated this plan as bad. So that tells you a little bit about what the voters' beliefs might be. In any case, this Measure B is opposed by former City Council Supervisor, County Supervisor Pam Slater Price, League of Women Voters of San Diego, North County, League of Women Voters, the California League of Conservation Voters, the retired Escondido City Fire Chief, and the Sierra Club of San Diego. And I would just note, as a segue from your traffic discussion, and as I was out in your lobby looking at your art exhibit, I also noticed the city charter in Section 4 said that no body shall take your revenues or shall assign to you work without providing the funds. And in essence, that's what this Measure B will do.
Your time is up, sir. J.C. Nguyen.
Okay, once again, good evening, Council. Thank you for having me. I'd like to take this opportunity at my 3 minutes at the microphone to make my endorsements, if I will, for the election coming up this November the 8th. There's a lot of good people running, but after much thought and observation, I would like to urge my 12 friends and family to consider re-electing Cody Campbell and to also add Joe Green to the City Council this year. I think those fellows are forward-thinking, will add new, fresh ideas to the future, and they will further keep the agenda of our city moving forward in the projects that we have underway now without throwing obstacles in the way or added concern. Our future's looking good. I really think Vista has come a long way, and I just can't imagine in midstream changing too many things, that our city has got to go forward. I've lived here my whole life. I'm 50, turning 58, and I've been here for 57 years. So I think it's very important to keep Vista growing and become an even greater city than she already is. So thank you very much for my 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I guess that brings us to our comments, and I will do my mayor's comments. Vista Libraries Fall Festival is this Saturday, October 15th from 12 to 5. It's a family-friendly event, and it's folklorial dancing, puppet shows, and trick-or-treat bags for everyone. So for more information, you can call the library, and their number is 760-643-5100, 760-643-5100. And there's still time to sign up for youth basketball registration. Open registration will be held tomorrow and Thursday, October 12th and 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Jim Porter Recreation Center. And more information is online at vistarecreation.com. And the last thing is the first fall event of the Moonlight Presents is set for Friday, October 28th with Remember When Rock Was Young, the Elton John tribute starring Craig Meyer. And ticket information is online at moonlightstage.com. So we'll start with Deputy Mayor Rigby for comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say a big shout out to the fire department for a great open house this last Saturday at Fire Station number 5. I went to the event, talked to a lot of people. They really do a great job with these open houses. I've attended every year, and I want to say thank you for that opportunity for our residents to go and meet the firefighters and climb on the trucks and put out practice fires. They did a great job. And also, Alta Vista Gardens had their fall festival this weekend, and so I was a judge for the Scarecrow contest again this year. And that contest gets harder and harder to judge every year. But congratulations to the Vista Historical Society's Scarecrow for winning that contest. And then this last week, the city manager and I went up to Long Beach for the California League of Cities annual conference, and attended more sessions than one might think humanly possible. But anyway, so that's my report for tonight. Thank you.
I'd like to make two comments. My first comment is that I think we need to all work to convince our assembly members and the state legislature to stop the thieving of our dollars that come from writing traffic enforcement tickets. The reason that people go 90 miles an hour down the highway, and rare is the time that you see a cop pulling them over, is because you can't, forget about making a profit, you can't break even on writing tickets. And there's too many people speeding in our cities, not just through intersections. My home backs up to one of our major busy streets, and people speed all night long. The fact that our state legislature has pillaged this revenue source, which ought rightfully only be used to reimburse the cost of enforcing the traffic laws, is nothing short of a travesty. The state legislature has murdered thousands of people by denying law enforcement and municipalities and counties the effective means of recovering the cost of enforcing the law. It's the reason no one goes the speed limit on the highway. It's the reason we can't afford to do as much traffic enforcement as we would like. The fines should be lower, and the proceeds should be left to the jurisdictions to cover the salaries of the deputies writing them. That's my first comment, and it's egregious. And every one of our assembly people has culpability in that. It's egregious. I am not satisfied with traffic enforcement in the state, in our city, in our county, and it's because of that. The second comment that I want to make goes to the way that we treat each other and the civility that we have in this chamber. You know, I don't think it's included in Robert's Rules of Order, but in the House of Representatives, a member can be censured for assailing or disparaging the motives of another member. And if you ask if I brought the red light camera issue forward tonight because voters are paying attention, you can take it to the bank. You're darn right I did. You're darn right I did. The people of Vista elected me on a promise, and we delivered on it tonight. You heard from people that are out talking to people in the community. Am I embarrassed or ashamed to have brought something forward tonight because I felt that people wanted it and that I fought until I got it? No, I'm not. And I don't appreciate the disparagement of my motives because I, too, am trying to do what I think is best. I don't appreciate the way I was interrupted tonight when I was trying to make what I thought was a very relevant point. I will treat each of you here with respect, and I ask that you simply do the same. Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we can't discuss items that are not on the agenda, but if perhaps you would like to put your discussion on for writing a letter at some point regarding that issue, I think we can have a discussion on that item. But I just want to report that at the end of September, for the second year in a row, I represented the city in Washington, D.C. for 4 days that I was there with the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. That is a jam-packed trip as well, with many meetings with representatives from all over our state and our country. Had some great interaction with former Senator Elizabeth Dole regarding a great program that she's doing regarding a program called Hidden Heroes, which are helping the family members and service providers that provide service to our veterans and our veteran community. And I think at some point we need to have that discussion here in the city of Vista, and I'm going to be putting an item on the agenda to discuss this particular item and program about how we can partner with cities. The city of San Diego is going to be one of those first cities to participate in this program to provide resources and a network for those family members, friends, neighbors, service providers to veterans about how we can better provide for them so that they can provide for veterans who serve us and have served in harm's way. So there's a lot of great programs and items that came out of that trip. I'll be bringing some of them back. Had meetings with organizations regarding smart cities in terms of various pieces that I think would work very well here in Vista to improve the quality of life for our city. So I'm going to be bringing some of those items back, and specifically the Veterans Service Provider Initiative. That trip, I think, was a good use of my time, especially helping put Vista on the map. I was in a meeting at a major consulting and lobbying group in Washington, D.C., and specifically we were talking about collaboration for business. And I actually gave a comment and a shout-out to our very own Economic Development Director, Kevin Ham, and talked about the great work that we're doing here in the city of Vista with our Innovate 78, which the mayor plays a key role in as well, in the collaboration of our cities. And that's something from an organization, they said they work with cities all over the world. What we're doing and accomplishing here in North County with the regional collaboration of keeping businesses and keeping jobs in North County is something that they said is to be emulated and admired for the work that we're doing amongst all 5 cities. It's not something you commonly see. Even here in San Diego County, it's not. So we had a great discussion about that and ways to not necessarily improve upon it, but some ideas of more regional collaboration. And that's the work that I've been doing with the regional chamber as well. So thank you.
Councilor Aguilera.
I think my remarks were heard. Thank you.
Okay. City Manager.
A couple comments. The county is looking for poll workers for the presidential election on November 8th, especially bilingual poll workers. So if you're interested, check out online at sdvote.com for more information. And the last item is due to construction, there'll be no weekend coaster or Amtrak service between Oceanside and San Diego for the next 2 weekends, which are October 15th and 16th and October 22nd and 23rd. If you need more information, you can go to the website of gonctd.com. Thank you.
Okay. City Attorney.
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Our City Clerk. Nothing. Okay, with that, we are adjourned at 9:03.